and Police Chaplain Stephen Traxel, pastor of our Grace Apostolic Church.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands,
Just in
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
liberty
justice for all.
Thank you if you all join me in prayer. Lord, we're so thankful today for your goodness and mercy to us. Thank you for your blessings upon the city. Lord, this is the day that you've made. We'll rejoice and be glad in it. Lord, we come before you today as we start this council meeting, that we come with humble hearts before you to say, first of all, thank you for getting us out of bed this morning with our own strength, that we're here with our own strength. And so for that, we thank you for the blessings upon us. We pray a blessing upon our city. We pray a blessing upon our families, husbands and wives and children, upon our schools, those first responders that give their life that we might be safe. I pray, Lord, that you would touch the hearts and minds of our council members, mayor, city manager, attorney, treasurer, all those that have to make the decision, and they give themselves here on these Tuesday nights on a regular basis when people are home, comfortable in bed. These people come here because they care about our city. And so I pray a blessing upon them because they do that, because I know my family is in the city, and I appreciate these people for doing what they do. I pray that we'd have a spirit of humility and meekness in all that we do, that we prefer our brothers and sisters before ourselves and look to you as guidance as our leader. We ask you bless the Clawson city in a way that it become a beacon of hope and light to the cities around us, that we might truly act out and live a little city with a big heart in everything we do. We give you the praise and glory for all things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Pastor Traxel, thank you to you also for all the service that you provide to our community as our chaplain, and also you and your family and your service throughout Grace Apostolic Church. So thank you. All of us can make a difference, and you're an example of that. Roll call, please.
Mayor Milan.
I am here.
Councilmember Sampson.
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd. Ish.
President, remotely calling in from Clawson, Michigan, participating as a non-voting member.
Excellent. Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
That is a voting quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next thing on our agenda would be the approval of our agenda.
I move to approve the agenda as presented. Oh, wait a minute.
No, we need to add.
We're going to add the proclamation. I move to amend the agenda to include the proclamation for Family Court Awareness Month.
I'll second that.
Thank you. And can we put that under 8A, where it would belong? Maybe?
Is there any more changes?
Certainly.
Since Glenn is here today and we're all here today, I'd like to make a motion that we proceed with Mr. Raker's evaluation. We
We got to vote on the first.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, would we
Vote.
amend my?
No, well, it's all one because it's amending the agenda.
Oh, it's
So I
another.
don't need to make an agenda. That's right. I don't have to make an motion for that. We would like to add an item to address our city manager's review, which we were going to do last night, but Mr. Shepherd was not, Councilmember Shepherd was not with us. Since he's here today, and it is a conversation only, there will be no voting or anything. We could actually take care of that tonight. Because we have an extremely short agenda, it would allow us to kind of meet your request to get it done quickly, and then we could just do it and then move on.
Adam is item
8B.
8B. No. Oh.
No,
9.
9C.
9C.
The motion and the second both agree to add that to the motion?
Yep.
Okay. We'll do it as one motion.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson.
Before I vote, Councilman Shepherd, are you comfortable doing that tonight?
Yeah, yes, I am. Yep.
Okay. Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd does not get the vote, sorry. Have it written down the list.
Okay, so we're going to add a proclamation at 8A, and then we're going to do the evaluation at 9C. Thank you. And then the next item on our agenda will be public comment for items on the agenda, and I feel like you should clap for me that I did not forget public comments in the beginning of the meeting.
You are improving.
Don't worry, there's room for error somewhere else. So saying that, is there anyone in the public who would like to speak this evening? If so, you can make your way to the podium. We'll give you 3 minutes. Just state your name and your address, and you can speak about any item that is on the agenda this evening. I will take that as a no. We will move on from public comment and go to the next item, which is consideration of approving the following consent agenda. The first item is minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, October 4th, 2022, as presented. The next item will be a list of bills in the amount of $469,398.10.
I'll second.
I guess I'll motion.
Oh, I thought that was the motion.
No, but close. Good
Okay.
enough. Roll
I'll
call.
get this figured out, yeah.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Sorry, Mayor Milan, yes. Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Passes. Thank you.
Great.
We just do that to keep August on his toes.
All right.
The goal is for everyone to be awake. So the next item is a proclamation. This proclamation is for recognizing November as Family Court Awareness Month. Kelly, are you with us on Zoom? I can't see that far away, so Kelly Dodge,
Yes.
great. So Kelly, I'm going to read the proclamation, and then after that, we'll give you an opportunity to just talk about this initiative that is so near and dear to you. So whereas the mission of the Family Court Awareness Month Committee, which FCAMC, is to increase awareness on the importance of a family court system that prioritizes child safety and acts in the best interest of children. And whereas the mission of the FCAMC is fueled by the desire to create awareness and change in the family court system for the conservatively estimated 58,000 children a year ordered into unsupervised contact with abusive parents, while honoring the hundreds of children who have been reported as murdered during visitation with a dangerous parent. And whereas the mission of the FCAMC is to increase awareness on the importance of empirically based education and training on domestic violence and child abuse, including emotional, psychological, physical, and sexual abuse, as well as childhood trauma, coercive control, and post-separation abuse for judges and all professionals working on cases within the family court system. And whereas the mission of the FCAMC is to increase awareness on the importance of using scientifically valid evidence-based treatment programs and services that are proven in terms of safety, effectiveness, and therapeutic value. And whereas the mission at the FCAMC is to educate judges and other family court professionals on evidence-based peer-reviewed research. Such research is a critical component to making decisions that are truly in the best interest of children. This research includes the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, child custody educators' belief about domestic abuse allegations, and child custody outcomes in cases involving parental alienation and abuse allegations. Now therefore it be resolved that the City of Clawson proclaims the month of November as Family Court Awareness Month, and I encourage all residents to support their local community's efforts to prevent the harm of children in the hands of family members and to honor and value the lives of children. Kelly, thank you for bringing this extremely important issue to our attention, and if you want to make yourself known at this point, we would love to hear from you.
Mayor Milan, City Council, thank you for proclaiming November as Family Court Awareness Month. My name is Kelly Dodge. I'm a protective parent and a child safety advocate with Family Court Awareness Month. I'm fighting to bring awareness to serious child safety issues that are happening in our family court system. Over 2 years ago, I ended up in the family court system dealing with issues related to child safety, and I had no idea how hard it would be to protect my child. Family court rulings are widely based on parents getting a fair share of parenting time with the child and not on the safety of the child with an abusive parent. Child protection is viewed as the job of social services, but family courts are ruling on cases with child abuse concerns every day. Children are forced to not only have contact with, but unsupervised overnight visitations with their abusers, some getting 50-50 and some getting full custody. Most would be shocked to know that in many states, family court judges on the bench making rulings that impact child's lives have 0 mandated training hours in childhood trauma, child emotional, physical, and sexual abuse, coercive control, and domestic violence. In many states, barbers and beauticians are mandated to have more domestic violence training than its judges. Here are some statistics. Since 2009, 872 children have been murdered by a separating or divorcing parent. 1 in 5 children are victims of child abuse, usually by a family or a parent. 75% of child sexual abuse is perpetrated by a family member or a person known to the child. Family members are almost half of the perpetrators of crimes against children and child sex assault victims younger than 6 years old. More than 50% of the time, when an allegation of child abuse is raised in courts, the judge gives physical custody to the alleged abuser. This is from a 2019 study by Joan Meyer that I believe is notated in the proclamation. A child's exposure to an abuser is among the strongest indicators of risk to incest victimization. And of those abusive parents, they're more likely to seek sole custody than nonviolent ones, and they are successful 70% of the time. Domestic violence often worsens after separation or divorce, with the focus turning to the child or children, with up to 60% of the perpetrators who abuse their spouses will abuse their child. That's from a 2022 study. Domestic violence is about power and control. The desire to maintain power and control doesn't mysteriously vanish when the relationship ends. The family court system becomes a new and highly effective platform for abusers, and those abusers know how to manipulate untrained judges. Our primary goal this year is to shine a spotlight on the need for mandated training for judges and family court professionals who are ruling on cases with child safety issues every day. Our children's lives are literally dependent on the courts being educated on those issues. It means the world to not only me, but to all the other Michigan parents who have family court cases. Please join us for Critical Conversations, a virtual event every Sunday starting October 30th and during the month of November at familycourtawarenessmonth.org. Each 75-minute session will begin at 7 p.m. We'll have a panel discussion on topics such as family courts, post-separation abuse, and Black women in the family court. Again, thank you so much for declaring November as Family Court Awareness Month in the city of Clawson.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dodge. We appreciate your coming before us and sharing this with us.
Thank you.
We wish you well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is consideration of establishing a public hearing to solicit public comments on the program year 2023 Community Development Block Grant application. The Community Development Block Grant is a grant funded through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to keep communities sound, attractive, and economically viable. Oakland County provides federal community development block grant funding to communities for revitalization projects. The program strengthens neighborhoods by supporting local revitalization, home improvement, and public services for senior citizens, low-income persons and families, disadvantaged youth, and disabled residents throughout most of Oakland County. As part of the application process through the county and federal government, we are required to hold a public hearing regarding our application. The application to the county is due on December 23rd. It is recommended to set this public hearing for November 13th and will occur during the regular city council meeting on this date.
So moved as written.
Second.
For clarification, it's November 15th, I believe, is the date.
I thought I read November 15th. Public hearing for November 15th.
I heard
The
13th.
application is due December 23rd, and then public hearing for November 13th?
13th or 15th?
It's the 15th.
Oh, sorry, 15th.
It is the 15th, yes.
Sorry.
Okay. 1-5.
All right.
Got it. We were close either way. Okay. So,
November 15th.
Anything else would you like to share with us on this, Nick? You usually had this up for us.
No, we're setting the public hearing, a meeting in advance. Usually we do the first meeting in November to set the public hearing. We're just doing it now, so we have a little more time to plan out our application, to present it to you guys and the project that we'll be proposing. So this will give us about a month to prepare that for council to approve.
Do we have an idea what our funding looks like for this upcoming year?
Not exactly, but as you know, we're kind of limited within the scope of the CDBG program. But we're definitely, I was doing that a lot today, is going through their application document to see where we may be able to expose some of these funds. So instead of what we've done in the past, but we can always do the removal of architectural barriers projects with the truncated domes as a fallback too. But I know that we'd like to try and use that funding for something else.
Do you know how much it is?
We usually, so they always tell us to base it on last year. So last year we got about $36,000, and it usually goes up a tiny bit. So I'm guessing a little above that.
Okay. And then you're taking input with the hearing, the open house. You'll take input also for projects that may be viable.
Correct. So the way we've done in this past is so we have the public hearing based on a project that the administration recommends, and then pending feedback by the public hearing council, we can either, there's still about a month to change said project, but ideally it is to have the council approve a project on that date. But by no means do we have to on that meeting, because we do have some time to prepare.
So are you going to reach out to some organizations, senior citizens organizations, certain segments of the population who are eligible? Because these can go to individuals, they can go to organizations, they can be done for the community. A lot of opportunities for different ways to spend. We always think we don't have very many because our demographics are not like many of the larger communities where there's a lot of need. But if we seek a little bit, we can probably find good need. So just want to make sure you guys do your due diligence on that.
Yeah, of course, the
open it up for
statistics
opportunity.
don't always tell the real story, but yes.
Exactly. Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yeah.
Mayor,
Yes.
I
Yes.
counted it. Mayor Milan.
Yes.
November 15th,
Thank you. Not the 13th.
not the 13th.
Just next item on the agenda is a discussion to consider the city's approach to the expenditure of the American Rescue Plan, ARPA funds. The American Rescue Plan, ARPA, was enacted to provide funds to state, local, and tribal governments that have been negatively impacted by the coronavirus pandemic. The city of Clawson received $1.2 million and has great flexibility in the expenditure of these funds to include the provision of general government services. The intent of this discussion is to gain consensus from the council on how they would like to utilize these dollars. I see our finance director, Kelly Rao, is here. Kelly, is this something you want to discuss with us? Do you have any ideas? Assuming you're here for a good reason. She's going, thanks a lot.
Kelly Rao, Finance Director. The city manager actually put this on the agenda so we could determine where we want to use the ARPA funds that were provided to us of $1.2 million. I think it's just a general discussion at this time to get council's input. City manager Raker can provide a little bit more information, but I can tell you that we have the standard allowance we elected back in April of '22. We have up to through December of '26 to spend the funds. So got a couple years, but can be used for anything at this point in time since we elected to use the standard allowance.
Thank you. Mr. Raker, do you have anything to add?
Sure. On October 13th, I provided you a memo with a rationalization of how I'm suggesting that we potentially consider the expenditure of these funds to rationalize around safety, efficiency, optimization, compliance, and opportunity, and how we provide services to the Clawson community. To further the conversation, I had a couple examples. I used public lighting, which would then enhance safety and efficiency. Our Hunter Community Center is in dire need of an engineering assessment so that we understand what we are up against as far as bringing that building up to code or creating any efficiencies and how best to optimize that site in general. So that potentially would give us some optimization of that site and potentially reveal some opportunities. The conversion of digital water meters provided roughly a DPW employee. It would take 6 full days a month or 72 days a year to get our water meter read. So if we converted all those analogs to digital, we'd have some efficiencies not only just efficiency, but safety optimization and additional opportunity by employing those hours elsewhere. And then lead service line identification and replacement would focus on safety and compliance. Of course, we could elect to potentially use this funding for our roads. We could use a portion of it for possibly miscellaneous road reconstruction projects, or to include some recreation and reconstruction of the ball diamonds that suffered during COVID as well. So this is not an exhaustive list, it's just a list to help provide some direction and to stimulate conversation.
How much would the digital water meters cost us?
I'm sorry, I cannot
How much
hear.
would the digital water meters cost us?
We have a dated estimate on that. I don't know what it is off the top of my head, but this was just a general discussion on, like, is this something that are these items you want to pursue, or are there other items that you feel are worthy of consideration as well? So I can definitely get more specifics on that, but I wanted to, before we started spending too much staff time, I at least wanted to socialize with you for your awareness to get some kind of consensus on interest.
My understanding was that most of the ARPA funding was going to the capital improvement program. Is that
No,
not the case?
No, the ARPA funding has been off to the side the entire time since I've been here. It was in addition, so we had the budget, the capital improvement, and then the ARPA funds was set aside.
He is correct in stating that these ARPA funds could be used for that lengthy list of capital improvements. They've not been allocated to such, but we
Correct.
could use the funds for
Sure.
the capital improvements. If that
In a sense, we're
addresses
saying
what
the
you're
same thing.
saying.
In a sense, we're saying the same thing.
Sure. As I think you'd mentioned, the ARPA funds, we have pretty broad discretion, even, God forbid, using for operating funds, which I don't think is a wise idea. I think what you've laid out here is much better. But okay, so we had received some additional monies for the capital improvement plan. Was that in any way related to the ARPA or not?
No, sir. Actually, I believe that the capital improvements, because you didn't do any capital improvements over the last several years, you created a fund balance. And so from that, we developed a capital improvements plan to go in excess of what we would expend from our revenues collected for the year.
Okay. Very well.
I'd like to see these dollars. I agree with your assessment that these funds should be spent on non-normal, like this is like your Christmas fund, right? That you're not spending on your gas, electric, whatever. This is like your aunt gave you $20 and you get to go buy whatever you want, yay! That we want to do something like that with these funds. So to do something extra that we couldn't normally do. But I'd like to see whatever we come up with, because we have the opportunity to do several different projects depending on how we do this. I'd like to see something that directly benefits residents, and not in a service providing way, but in a way that is community centers, parks, something that your families can enjoy that's a tangible for something like that, something new and shiny that people can say, this is for all of us, as opposed to just fixing our buildings and maybe fixing another road, which would be great, which we can't do very much even with 1.2 million. But I would like to, when the plan gets through, maybe do a community assessment to see what people's priorities are and see if we can come up with something that would be special for the entirety of the community, that we can even attribute to ARPA funds for everyone as they look back and think of those challenging 2 years that were COVID, and say at least something good came out of it, and here it is.
I think my phones are not secure.
Yeah, I'm curious if there's any grants that may be possible to be combined in order to stretch the dollar for these ARPA funds on certain projects, whether or not there's a recreational grant or something similar to that. And certainly, as Mayor Milan had mentioned, there's regarding recreation. I think the park needs to be looked at as a common place for everybody that joins, and probably one of the open air places that most people congregated during COVID, and like to see if we can try to expand and improve the amenities that are there, whether it's the shelter that's in the center of the park, whether it's the tot lot, or whether it's possible that, perhaps even a concert shell of some site.
Picnic tables. I know the list is long, right? When we have the people in to tell what their needs are for the community, it's a long list. So if we could go through and maybe highlight some of those.
Are you suggesting a workshop to bring the community in?
I think that would be wise. I think it would be nice.
Yeah.
A workshop for,
You would bring all your projects with a number, and then have the people kind of, tell us their wants and wishes. And then we put a big list together, and you put a price on them, and then we can figure out how to get the best bang for our money.
Kind of like CDBGs do in larger communities when they're determining which projects they're going to select, right? They do, and they do a public hearing, and then they have the projects highlighted. They have, a draft of what it would be along with the cost and all of that. That would be a good way to do a priority and to open it up.
I'd like to see a lot more community involvement in that.
What do you got for us?
I just wanted to make a comment. Typically, these ARPA funds can be used as a match if there are any grants available, rather than using our own funds, so that is an option as well.
That'd be great.
So
Speak-
if there's grants available.
Add grants as an option. When you bring all of it to us, add the grants that we could use, we could apply for probably when.
I can try to get a list together of what's available to Clausen.
And speaking of grants, do we have an idea of what we have outstanding in grants? And maybe I should ask this at another time, but I want to think about while I'm thinking about it. We do receive grants for various things throughout our community. I'd be interested in seeing a list of them and where we are with them to make sure like nothing's falling in the cracks, nothing's fallen through the cracks, that we've met our obligations, that we're actually getting them. Because I know a few years back, there were issues with a couple that we had that we didn't do our due diligence on, and they kind of fell through, so.
The only one that I'm aware of currently is the CDBG grant that Nick takes care of. He's also applied for a couple federal grants and county grants, I believe. We have the police department applies for smaller grants throughout the year that they typically take care of, so.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see if it's not hard to put together a list and then just share it with everyone, just to show it, share it with the
It's a
community,
quick
right?
list, yes.
Yeah, it would be so nice for everyone to see that, we're going beyond what we have, right? We have to, in order to maximize what we can do, we need to maximize the options that are out there. And when you came in, Mr. Raker, I know this was one of the things we discussed. We discussed it with all the city managers coming in, that, how hard can you work on bringing things in? And I know Nick has pursued some, and we appreciate that. And I also know they're time consuming, but if we win in them, then it's a definite win, right? It's worth the time that we've expended. But I'm just curious what's out there in the past, what we have coming, and then what we could look forward to also.
I can think of just 3 grants off the top of my head. Well, I guess one's kind of pulled together. It's the one through the federal government for the community project funding that elected members of Congress recommend to the House of Appropriations. Both of our projects, the one for the Red Roof reconstruction and the North Washington, I believe are in the final steps of being approved. I mean, the federal budget just has to get the thumbs up at this point, and we should know by the end of this year. And then, and those are upwards of a couple $100,000. And the only other grant that I can think of off the top of my head without doing some research is just a small one through Oakland County for about $1,000 for some native species in the island pedestrians on 14
In our
Mile.
community, $1,000 of plants that's a lot, right? We need them.
Didn't we have a grant for the flashing light on 14? The safety.
The Hawk grant?
What's it called?
I think it's Hawk. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. How did that grant come out?
Yes.
MEDC, maybe? I think that rings
I
a bell.
know it was a Hawk grant, now that you said it.
Yeah, I don't know the status of that one off the top of my head, but I know that I believe we have something outstanding in that realm. Yes.
I think it's for the MEDC, and it was to finish I think upgrade the Hawk to the next level of safety status. So I'll include that with the update on all the grants, if that is in fact applicable.
When you do the update, you're going to do all the grants, like say applied in 2022 and 2021? Tell us what happened to them all.
Yeah, we can do that, and then the ones that we actually are receiving with the statuses.
Yeah, it would be updated. We didn't get it, we got it. Whatever.
Okay, anything else on this?
I'm assuming there's a certain price tag on each of these items to get a sense of the priority. Have we got quotes on all of them? or
No,
is-
I've not. These have been kind of spitballed in the past, and some to create, ones that had efficiency attached to it, I thought was kind of a priority to continue to stretch the tax dollar. But as far as getting quotes, we'd have to go back out and start doing that research again. But I'm glad that we've had this conversation, because it sounds like the consensus is mostly interested towards recreation and parks and the amenities that the community at large can enjoy readily.
I would say not mostly. I would just say make sure that's a component, right? A significant component. I think probably don't want to spend it all there, but we definitely want something that the residents feel like they have a buy-in on also. But we do have other things that we could do that we can't normally do that should also be addressed. But with that money, we should be able to do both, I would assume. Just have to be creative with that. You also mentioned the Hunter, a study for Hunter. Haven't we done studies on Hunter? Haven't we done several studies on Hunter? I know
I think what.
heating, cooling, whatever, all that's been done.
We did the, when the school was going to buy it from us. We did it,
So that's 2 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you have asbestos tiles, you have the parking lot is in disrepair, you've got the rooftop unit that is on the fritz. Basically, the building is starting to self-cannibalize. Heating goes out, plumbing goes out, toiletry goes out. They basically secure that part of the building, like one room at a time, and it's not getting better. So I think AEW took a swag at it. It would be roughly $15,000 to do a full engineering assessment of what has to be done to that building. And from that, one of the components that I've been talking about is building a relationship with the school district to create greater optimization in the recreational services we provide to the community at large, and how we could potentially do that as a school district and city council combination. So that is something that that study would facilitate potentially what would be the disposition of that location. Do we drop X amount of dollars into it, and what will its use be? The school district is going through a reconfiguration where they're going to demolition buildings and enhance other ones. One of the spitball conversations with the superintendent has been the potential utilization of, starts with a K, the school, Kenwood, pardon me. That may be a potential location that we could co-locate our recreational and senior services. It's something that I think the city should look at. That building has got a lot of problems. That location is at a dead end, and there could be better ways to optimize service provision.
But throwing money at another study, when we did a study not long ago, and the only thing that it's going to say is your ceiling tiles are worse than they were 2 years ago. None of the asbestos did not walk away. The heating, cooling systems didn't age, less than 2 years. They aged 2 years. So a lot of the issues are still going to be there. So if we just start addressing those issues instead of putting more money into studies for the engineer, when we know what the results are going to be anyways, we could be replacing some of those toilets or fixing. $15,000 of building stuff is better spent on a building you're maintaining than it is passing off to the engineer again. If it were 10 years old, I'd say, yeah, let's do it. But it was done within the past few years. It's kind of a waste of our money.
I mean, you kind of said the same thing about the PACER study, and the PACER study demonstrated that our roads significantly did deteriorate since the last one.
Well, I would expect
And
them to deteriorate,
Same with this building, and
but
same.
but you know it's deteriorating, right? So you're going to do a study, and they're going to tell you, this is worse than it was before. Nothing on that list got better.
The costs of making these repairs have also gone up and would drive, I think, a decision for this community as the best way. What do we do with that building?
My question would be, why aren't we fixing, like when the toilets go out, why don't you fix them?
I believe there's been parts issues, getting parts. That's been one of the issues. Also, the fact that there's asbestos, the tiles, and also the heating and cooling. I think the heating and cooling, it was more of a parts issue than anything. And also with the plumbing, it was access to. There was only limited, those are cinder block walls, and the access ports where they have to secure things, just, it's limited. And they're at a position where they're basically shutting down portions of the building in order to remain at least as efficient as possible.
Is it because they don't have a budget to make the repairs, or is it because they can't make the repairs?
I think it's
Any repair can be made.
absolutely,
my
it's just a
point,
matter
right.
of how much money do you want to throw at the
Yeah.
problem. And there are a lot of problems at Hunter, is what I'm trying to impart on the council.
Well, the schools, when we were going through with the schools, that was pretty extensive. And it's really 2 years old. You could look at what's changed in 2 years.
I'll take a look at it
Yeah.
and bring it up to AEW and.
I don't
see
think
what our best way
AEW
forward
did
is.
it. I don't know if AEW did it or the schools engineers did. But you have to call them. They'll have a copy of it. There should be one on file because we had a meeting over it.
Okay, we don't need, we're finished with this topic, right? Anyone else, anything else on this topic?
So what's our outcome so we know we're going to have a workshop?
Sure. we
They're going to
can-
bring,
Well, we can do a workshop.
Let us do our, some
They need to do their due diligence.
Yes, we need to do some due diligence first on a lot of this stuff. And I mean, I guess I can say this now, part of what my city manager's report was going to be was to actually identify a date where council would be interested in having a joint session with the school district. And part of that was going to be to actually charge both administrations to develop a task force, a mutual task force, so we actually take a look at how we provide recreation, athletics, maintain the fields, the assets, and senior services. How do we best optimize that? So that Hunter component is can be part of that. So, and that will open up the dialogue with the school district. Again, if they have the report, I'll ask for it in advance, and from that, we would have, a pretty dynamic group of people, I think, on the task force to take a look at all this stuff. Because the school district is doing a lot with their buildings, and now may be the time to develop a stronger partnership.
So we have relationships for some of those things you mentioned already. Could you provide to all of council a list of how we manage those programs that you're talking about? And then what the relationship currently is with the school district? And then perhaps what your thoughts are of how you would like to optimize those prior to us getting into this meeting? Because I would assume everyone doesn't have the same level of knowledge of any of those items.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I think we're lost. So what do you guys think you got for action?
What do I have for action? So significant component would be Parks and Recreation. However, take into consideration all the other aspects. You want a list of grants and show the statuses, ones that we applied for, ones that are provided, ones
For
that we
21,
applied for and we
22.
received. and how we manage programs, what programs we manage, how we manage, and what my desires are with those programs with the school district.
And you want to set a date for that joint meeting?
Billy Schellenbarger and I were spitballing December 21st. We have a meeting on the 20th. They have a meeting on the 19th, and he's going to socialize with them the 21st. And so I am tossing that out there for your consideration. That gives us a couple months.
I'd prefer not to do a meeting, especially something that's new and thought-provoking, the week before Christmas. A lot of people are gone, and
Out shopping.
I don't know, I want to, like, I'll have other things to do then. I'll do one meeting, but if we don't have to do two, I'd rather wait maybe till the beginning of the year while everyone's kind of fresh, and then we can start something and pick up on it and move in case we want to move on something, and then not have to say we'll do it after the holidays.
The intent was hopefully that we capstone the calendar year with charging the administrations to develop the task force so that they can start at the beginning of the year. How can we optimize our assets collectively?
Would it be a problem to wait 2 weeks?
Well, I mean, it's a starting point for the school board too, so I'll let them know that if that's the desire, if you wait 2 weeks, you're into January.
Yeah.
It was a suggested starting point that he's pitching, that I'm pitching. If it's not your desire, I'll let him know.
Just not that week, like, even the week before, I would say yes, let's just
I
not.
was going to say sooner rather than later, if they didn't move it up, I'd rather do
Yeah,
that.
I'm fine with moving it up, but just not that, that's a busy week. There's just so much that happens that time of year. It would be better to not have to fit it in, and that we're actually putting our efforts into it instead of going, oh no, another meeting, because it is important and it probably would be really beneficial, but let's do it at a time where we can think about it. My thought.
Although my kids will be home, so I might want to get out of the house.
You'll be shopping.
I'll ask for a sooner rather than later date then.
Thank you. Okay, then our next item is we're going to do our quarterly review with our city manager. Thank you for letting us do this today. Glenn, you're here and,
You want to do it in closed session or not?
oh, sorry, I guess you get that option. Would you prefer that?
No, it's open session's fine.
Okay, thank you. You're not feeling coerced, right? You're fine with open session.
Okay, yesterday.
Did you say anything coercive?
I don't usually.
Then there we are.
Okay, thank you. Okay, then, let's see, we'll just do, we had the form. If anyone wants to utilize the city manager form, that would probably be a great tool, that we're all on the same page somewhat. And we'll just start it with whomever would like to go first. Glenn, let's let you speak because you're far away. Let's bring you closer.
Thank you, Madam. So I did use the score sheet, and I will say, in the months that I've gotten to know Joe, I appreciate the communication. I appreciate the candor. I appreciate the information that I've been given. One of the things that sticks to mind, and it's one of the items that it's at the last item, is Joe, your professionalism. And I appreciate that. Not having known the previous city manager, well, we've had a number of them, obviously. And that was my concern coming into city council, that we make sure that we stabilize this role and this process. With that, one of the things that I was looking for was what level of partnership that I could expect and receive while I've been on council. And again, with that, I appreciate our conversations, your availability when I've reached out to you, your reaching out to me when you found the opportunity. And so with that, I really appreciate that. So I'll just preface it by I don't give out sixes. It takes a very rare situation to reach that level, because I always think that everybody needs to strive to be the best. And so with that, I would just have to say that management of the organization coming in and given the keys to a situation that had some upheaval, some turnaround, and then to proceed to have continued turnover. I think that you've been able to weather that storm admirably. And for that, I would give you a 5. On the execution of policy, where we've been clear on what we've discussed, in my opinion, while we have our discussions over policy, when it's been presented in a legible and understandable form, I think you've been able to execute our policy. So for that, I'll give you a 5. Financial management, I appreciated the process in which you handled the capital improvement plan, how you coordinated the different department heads and the level in which they were able to provide their information and coordinating that, and then working with Kelly on that. And for that, I'd give you a 5. The one situation with the relations with council, in my opinion, I think that does need some work. For that, I would say I would give you a 4 on that. But again, I that's from my witnessing some of the conversations. That is not my personal experience in working with you and dealing with you and speaking with you. But just one of those that it was in my mind that it would need to be addressed and worked on in the next few months. Community relations, from having seen you in the first couple of months walk around with Gina to tour some of our facilities. I appreciated the reaching out to and the continued conversation with our school district. And the many people that I have encountered who have given you high marks in your short term. I think that's been something that I would also feel is a good mark and give you a 5 on that. On communications, on your Friday meeting notices or Friday feedback, I appreciate the length and the detail that you provide, and also the extension of availability. And I have taken advantage of that on a number of occasions when I have felt that I needed to speak to something that's specific that was addressed. And also, if there was something that had come up that I would like to have it included in your Friday feedback, most notably the conversation with Parks and Rec, DPW, and CYBSL, recapping the status of our play areas, and obviously our play areas in general, not necessarily just for CYBSL. So I would say that would be a 5. And leadership, I think being able to set the example is what I always like to say when I are addressing the people that I work with. And I think you've done that. I think you've set an excellent role model for Nick, which he's emulating, I think, to great satisfaction, in my opinion. And so for that, I would give you a 5. And then, as I said, for professionalism, I think that stands for itself. And in that situation, I did go against my own rule. I did give you a 6 for professionalism. So regarding additional comments on achievements, I mentioned that it's been a juggling act with a number of retirements and replacements over your tenure. The new hirings were also challenging, but as I think we've seen so far, have been successful. And obviously, continuing to have that positive relationship to be built with not just city staff, but with the residents and the other quasi-governmental roles, such as our schools, would be a great, I'd mark that as a great success. For concerns, I would mention the improvement of morale of city employees will be key for the next few months, with the objective, obviously, to limit turnover as best as possible. Also, as I mentioned before, while I've not encountered this concern, improving the relationship with council will be important. But in that regard, I also think that it's a two-way street, that we have to, one of the things that I wanted to mention when I came on board was that I'm here to listen. So it's not just giving you directions. I would like to hear, what the concerns are from your perspective, so that we can best be a collaborative body for the best of Clawson. But one of the other things I wanted to return back to was conversations that we had when we first started, was that on developing procedures and having those in place for those items and tasks that are not clearly defined, and whether or not that's something that will be addressed through the course of the Charter Commission. I would still like to see something that's that developed, for procedures, whether they be work instructions, but something that that could be repeatable, so that when we have a situation on whether not necessarily ARPA funds, but how do we proceed with money that we have that's been given to us by the government? What's our procedure in doing that? And make sure that those tasks are repeatable and verifiable. But all in all, it's been a rocky start, and I give you a lot of credit for, like I said, weathering that storm. And I know that in the next few years, we'll get to that point where all the gears are humming and people are confident in the direction, once again, that we have. But I think the key thing is stability, communication, which part of that is listening. So again, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Shepherd. Councilmember
Okay.
Ant, you want to go?
I can.
Go ahead.
Okay, sure.
You want to go first?
No, you can go.
Okay, I'd like to first thank you for all the hard work you did and for sticking with us when just about everybody wasn't here. You did a great job pulling all the strings together. But I'm going to go through this pretty quick. Management of the organization. He talked about morale. You really have a hostile work environment at City Hall. And you need to be looking in there. You've had some complaints and you haven't investigated them, and it'd be a good time to. I've got 3 comments from people that were actually in here, and they've heard you yelling at people, at council people and at other people. And really, that's unprofessional, but it's my opinion. I'd like an explanation why you added assistant city manager when it's not even in the charter. And what authority did you give that raise? Because it's way over your limit. You're only allowed to spend $1,000 at a time without consent, advice and consent from the council. It may be something we want to talk about in the future.
That was for the assistant city manager, was that?
Yeah. Okay. You have dreams of adding a community development director in the staff? Is that true?
There's a strong likelihood of that, yes.
Would that be a collateral duty or a new position a
Would
new,
be a collateral duty,
just a collateral duty?
correct?
That's perfectly fine. Somewhere the staff is quoting that it's a city policy we promote from within. And we've kind of gotten that from you, that everybody's been promoted from within. But it's really you to come to us for advice and consent on making a lot of them decisions. And we haven't gotten a chance. The chief of police was a great example. We allowed you to do your process, your selection. But we don't really know the reason why we're not promoting her until May of '23. We have a selection. We all approved her. Why are we waiting until '23? I know you told us one thing in the Friday report, but there's a memo sent out to people where you actually said these are the things you wanted Vince to.
Milestones,
Yeah.
yes.
Why didn't we get that?
I believe he did receive it.
I don't remember receiving it. I looked all over for it, so.
Okay.
All right. In the management part,
Are we still on management?
yeah,
Okay.
well, I'm going through the whole thing.
Are you going to give a number for each one like
At the
Councilman
end.
Shepherd?
At the end.
Okay.
Lack of intervention between finance and DDA. They went several months arguing over a budget that they had to get intervened by Oakland County to figure out what their money really was. Why did it take so long to get the DDA a budget? We as a council and you need to get together and be familiar with the charter. We just sit in these meetings quoting what we think the charter says. And if I just say this, that I don't believe, I know what it says to me and what it says to them, so I think we need some opinions on some of this stuff.
Which you've received.
Well, everything in that charter, council hires you. We give you power to run the city, not make up what you want to do. Everything has to be advice and consent from the council.
No. We've covered this in regards to the police chief. So
No.
We have the city manager, the city attorney's opinion on that.
Yeah, well,
I mean, once you get something and you don't agree with it, I mean, that's, you're just disagreeing with what your
Okay.
hired city attorney provided an opinion on. There's professional
It just
interpretation.
means more discussion because in the charter, every section of the council and every section of your duties has advice and consent of council. If you go over $1,000, it says advise and consent of council. We approve it.
Outside of the regular operating,
No.
yes, outside the regular operating
An
expense
expenditure
of
over
the city.
$1,000, you can.
You can look at that a little closer because it says outside of the regular
All right,
operating
well, that's something we'll
expense.
have to put together a list of things you can look at. Ordinances. Ordinances need to be administered the same way for everybody. It depends on who you are in this town, or if you're a real pain. You were advised that the house on Elmwood has blight. The guy parks in his apron. I didn't realize about the apron until I got a parking ticket in front of my own house. You can get a ticket for parking on your apron. Why wouldn't that guy get a ticket every night? Why hasn't somebody done something with his blight has come all the way to the sidewalk? I made you aware of many of the buildings in this town. they have overgrown weeds and the trash and everything, and nothing's happened so far. And I'm sure you're aware because I sent you a lot of the pictures. Talking about ordinances, we tell some people in this town that you can't have, ordinance that you can't have weeds on the walls, you can't have junk trees. Why don't we look at the DPW? Your wall on your DPW is full of vines that I know they've ticketed people for, or threatened to ticket people for. They have weeds, and then if that wall fell down, people would realize that thing's full of junk. It needs to be cleaned up before the end of the year, so before freezing comes, or it's going to be full of junk next year. But nobody's looking at. We ain't looking at ourselves. This building is beautiful. The DPW is in a neighborhood, and it's not beautiful. I think we owe the citizens a beautiful town that they can be proud of. I reported them 3 islands. It became a show. It took, better than 6 weeks to get them done. Finally, it was one business owner said, I can't stand it anymore, and they cleaned their island up in front of there. The other island, they did a great job, and they took everything out. And the third island, they just cut all the weeds to under 4 inches. But they're all just burned up, and because of the weeds, the plants they did have got killed. You got barrels there holding up signs. It's obvious that nobody's walked over there, and if you look real quick, you can take that sign off, mount it right to the no left turn sign, and take the barrel away. But for 6 months we've had barrels in downtown, 3 of them, and it just looks trashy. Accuracy of information is part of this. You gave us a Friday report telling us that new road project was going to be 50% more of an increase. You allowed AEW to come here and present it as it's a 50% increase. So everybody thinks it's going to cost us 50% more. You failed to tell us that it was also project creep. They're going to get the side streets. They added quite a bit of stuff to it. So it is not a 50% increase. It's an increase in the scope, and it's an increase in cost.
Right.
That's how it should have been presented, but it wasn't. It wasn't until we questioned them. And that's when I said, what are you doing in there? Well, we have to go so far both ways on the, so we have to be accurate with what we tell the citizens. Citizens right now think we went ahead and bid on a job that was 50% more, but it was really a bigger project. And we need something we can bring up one of these meetings and say, explain how much. I'd like to know how much bigger the project got, and then what the actual increase in cement and everything else. All the labor. Okay, CM 08422. That was a resolution we entered into with IT, right? The Information Technology Services. And it was really because we all realized that our data is not protected. From the last explanation you gave us, our data still isn't protected, but it's being worked on. We really need to get that. Is the backup for the Historical Society still sitting behind her chair? Where she said she was going to pick it up if the place ever burned down? Our backups need to be taken care of immediately, because any day now we could get nailed. And do you have a firewall yet that we can trust? And do we have a standardization of equipment? Or are we just still buying this kind of computer and this kind of computer? And eventually we're going to try to standardize and make the computers all work. and it's a lot easier, a lot cheaper to put a new computer in. When will we have a standardization of that?
That is all still in work as we speak.
How much?
As late as recent as last week, I believe, the gentleman from IT Right, also known now as VC3,
All
he
right.
was doing an assessment in the Recreation Department.
Okay. It's just funny that the mayor brought it up, or whoever brought it up, but grants. We don't know about that Hawk one, but you'll look into that. Did we apply for the tree grant this year?
I'd have to ask Trevor. Chances are, I would believe we did. I think that's a pretty standard one.
Yeah. And I was going to ask if you provide a list of all grants. We've already talked about that. There's no update on the 2023 budget. We keep taking the budget and amending it and amending it. I would like to be able to run my house the same way, going, I need some more money, so why can't we stick to a budget?
We have a quarterly budget amendment that the finance director is preparing. We had the audit this past week. I explained this in my Friday report, and we will have it at the first meeting in November.
Okay. The auditors last year gave us a list of things they wanted to see this year. I've never seen where we have implemented them. Have they been implemented?
Some have, some have not.
Can you give us a list of what's been done and what hasn't?
We'll cover that during the budget audit.
When's that?
The budget audit presentation will probably be the first or second meeting in December.
Okay. I believe there's an excess of budget amendments, and I think we're wasting money paying for a interim chief of police and a person that we, appointed chief of police. So, but just my opinion. In the area of, what is this under, relations with the council, at times you have a very, very lack of respect for the council. It's
And we
obvious.
can talk about this, council member, because I wasn't pushed to lose my respect for you until became very obvious to me you were utilizing your position to hurt people in my charge. And you did this around September 15th.
Mm-hmm.
Specifically came in and said you weren't impressed with a couple people in particular. One a department head, one his assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And by that point in time, it was one thing for you to come into my office and insult me, but then when you come into my office and attack people that are in my charge, I put an end to it. I said, if you want to keep up with this, that I answer your impromptu text messages, phone calls, impromptu visits, that if you keep this up, you can make an appointment to see me.
Oh, I see it as that.
That's exactly what I said. Almost, maybe there's some colorful language in there at the time, but that's what I said, because you provoked it. You're the one that started this. You're the one that's setting this toxic environment in this town.
No, if you think about it, when I brought up the thing about us not following OSHA standards, you kept telling me, take a picture and send it to me. I'll take care of
Absolutely I
it.
did.
Take
And
a
you did.
picture and send it to me.
And you did.
And then you said, pictures help. It makes my job easier. And I said, okay. Then I started doing hey, if you're doing what do you call the small jobs, the miscellaneous repair of streets,
Miscellaneous concrete repair.
I took my time out to take pictures of what I seen and send them to you. When I came in that day, you said, you're harassing me. It's like, because I'm sending pictures, yeah. Careful what you ask for.
I
No,
said-
careful what you ask for, because sometimes you get it. I was doing that to
said
help.
I was working with you on that, and I provided a list of.
No, you never did provide, we still.
Actually, you got it in the Friday report, which you're
Yeah.
distinguishing yourself as not reading on a recurring
No,
basis.
that report I got, that's the first one you gave me. Had you at least,
If you look at all the Friday reports, I will give you an update. I provided you an update as to where things were with Hartwell. So
right,
take a look at it, please.
we have a failure for you to, you haven't provided plans of the future structure of the city. And that's part of this adding community development. CM 04022, motion directing Mr. Reagan to provide understanding to council. And the very last part was, you're supposed to send us organizational charts, and we asked for what it looks
You
like
did.
today and what it's going to look like
I don't think you asked for like
Yes, we
what it's
did.
going to look like in the future.
I think we
You
should
asked
pull a
for-
tape and look at it.
Please do.
Okay. We have a CM 10-240, a motion to add new business items. Resolution for all open action items be added to the city manager's report in the form of an attachment. How come we haven't doing that?
I don't know what the date is of that motion. That may be before I even arrived
21.
here. I don't think that's accurate.
It is accurate, I got it off his list
Okay?
that he gave me.
I'll take a look at that because
It was a Sarvello thing when he first started.
Yeah, and then you're supposed to be doing that as an attachment. And an open items list keeps us from getting things of, we're a great council, give us 2-3 weeks, I don't remember what we did yesterday.
That's
So
great.
That would help. We've already talked about this as of 10/17. Council is really waiting to see what your reasons were not to appoint Kelly immediately.
I've made it fairly clear, and I'll make it clear again to you.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know how, but at some point in time, we might need a resolution on how many times I have to tell you.
Okay, I could do that.
Okay.
You did a great job on a Memorial Day celebration, I have to tell you.
Well, thank you.
On your community relations, you need to get more involved with the DDA and work more with them. And like for the budget, it was just too long for them to get a budget. It could have been solved in one meeting. We need to work with the various entities that hold events in the city. The reason that them 3 islands came up was because of the Clausen Fest and the other one the week before that. That's where you met me out there and we were dumping garbage cans. That's where we met, and I asked the assistant manager to get the weeds knocked down behind them buildings because that's where our community was going to, and didn't want them to see 6-foot weeds.
I agree with you on that.
Okay, and I went and knocked them down myself because we didn't have time, they said, to do it, so it didn't get done. Even when we did it, we only got 80% of them cleaned up, with the barrels empty, and we're still trying to solve the barrel problem. Southwest parking lot, I've told you about a couple times. It's been a problem way before you got here.
I agree.
And it's still a problem today, and we've worked on it, and we still can't solve it.
It is on the list.
Just being on the list doesn't mean, when can we expect it? We had a similar problem down the street at downtown Charlie's, and we fixed it in a day. We bought a new dumpster, got all the stuff, and it's
You're
taken
talking
care.
about the recycling?
Both of the two, that we still don't have,
And
they still don't have.
Joan and Trevor are working that issue
And the par-
as early as most recently as Monday.
Okay, and the parking lot is still flooding.
Floods.
What are we looking at, a year? Because we're getting to the icy season now. As soon as that thing starts melting.
Councilman, that is not something that is going to be fixed, like, at the shake of a stick.
I think we'll have to salt it more than this year.
That is a likely option.
I actually, everything's, we need to respond better to customer complaints, because I had asked the assistant city manager to contact people on School Street, and you did. I appreciate that. And we sent this guys out, and I appreciate that. But this was a huge hole in front of this guy's driveway, and they patched the holes on the bottom of the big hole and said, that's the best we're gonna do. The guy still has to bounce to get in his driveway. I know we're gonna replace it, but it ain't gonna be this year. And it's only gonna get worse for him, bigger holes. The patch we probably put in is probably gone now. So we just need to better follow up, verify that things got done. I kind of got a feeling they were insulted, like, this is really, you patched the holes on the bottom of a big hole, and you think I'm good, huh? He has the address if you want to go look at it. We notified you of a lot of unsafe conditions of the trees in the park. It was kind of a rush job because at that moment you could look at the tree and say, that's dead, that's dead, that's dead. Today, every day we're losing a little bit more of that. We need to block that all off now because that tree is dangerous. It's got all kinds of dead limbs on it. So somebody needs to look at that. And the other two dead trees are still out there too. But we got to make a nice, safe place for our community to play. And going in there with a bunch of dead trees, and I'd hate to see them go all winter with a bunch of yellow tape going, don't walk around here. So somehow that needs to be fixed. I inquired the other day about sample ballot on at 9:30. I called you and said, hey, there's not a sample ballot. You came back and said, it's a technical problem. I guess it was with the, what do you call it?
Watermark.
Watermark.
Yes.
Okay, just still ain't one on there that as of today. That's like 18 days later.
It's absolutely up there. It's been up there for weeks.
No, it ain't.
When I clicked on it, it was all there.
Let's do it right now. Do you want to take the time to look at it? It's not up there. I just,
Yeah, all right,
I mean,
we'll
I
take your
sent it
word
in on
for it.
October
Let's move
10th,
on.
I think.
I
So
understand. I have no problem doing it because I keep checking to see when it's going to be on. Streetlights. We owe the city people, the citizens all pay for streetlights. We got 5 on the south side and about 8 on the north side. I read it in your report but I couldn't understand what you were saying. The city, they're city-owned, DTE managed, right?
I'd have to verify that. I
That's right.
think they are,
The city
I
owned.
think DT owned. Oh, no, it is,
No, we
yes, because
pay-
we do the repairs.
One gets knocked
buy all
down,
the
we got to give them one of our
repair
lights.
parts. Yes.
Yeah, so they're city-owned. We owe the citizens to have lights in downtown. The 5 have been out, some investigation with the people, like, when was the last time you seen it on? It's really been out 3-4 months. I mean, they've been a long time. I can't even tell you what the other side, north side of the street from Maple Grove west. There's 8 lights all the way to Ace. I don't know how long they've been out, but both of them are really circuit problems, not a bulb problem.
DT reported that those 2 complaints that I conveyed to them
Yeah.
have been repaired.
So I should go out there today and it should be on. And that would have just been
That is
last.
what DT reported to me.
When did he call you?
This was probably, I think, on Thursday or Friday, I received their email.
Well,
And it's
check
in the
today.
Friday report.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. This is back to information you provide. I asked for an equivalent salary for a treasurer. What you guys were talking about, I did receive, but it wasn't my answer. You had sent it for, I think, when we were doing Nick. That was, quite a while before that. But I asked for equivalent salaries of, I don't want to compare them to Troy's and into the big cities around here. It was Berkeley, equivalent size cities. So you tried to make it look like I didn't read my email, but I did. I got that, did not associate it with what my question was, because my question was simple.
What was your question? Are you talking about the question you asked of me 24 hours before that
Well,
considered
and so the
would
people-
require
yeah.
considerable staff work to assemble these
Yeah.
non-comparable communities you were asking for?
Comparable.
I don't think that the one GovHR has been traditionally our comparable communities that we've used.
Well, it had a lot of other, in fact, there was
And
no.
this comes to the point where one person tasking the administration. That's where I push back.
But we need information to vote.
You wanted the information, and you're asking for it in an email, and you're asking for it 24 hours in advance of a meeting. That wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, well, so that everybody knows, we get the package on Thursday. most of the time we read it on Thursday. Sometimes if you're out of town, you read it when you get back, and you always say, call me on the weekend, I'll answer it. As soon as I opened that package up and seen that, I sent the email. I'm sorry it was 24 hours, but that was the first time I got to do it. So we need just to work on a procedure when that happens. Maybe we delay that vote.
Or maybe we don't, and the council members feel that the information they provided was sufficient by the administration, and we keep it moving.
Well, then I can accept
possible.
that, and we vote no on something. If we can't understand it, we have to vote no on it. I got a few complaints from the citizens of you're not responding to their emails. We just leave it at that. Can you make it?
You know the person you're talking about, so
No,
I know the person you're talking about.
per sentence.
Okay. Then you can elaborate.
And speaking of that person that you don't like,
Never said
it
anything.
it took intervention for me to say, answer her email for the community foundation. They're trying to give us money, and you would not answer back on her. That's a part of whether we like them or not. You answer the question. How much money did they give us from the community foundation?
And for what project?
I don't know. I don't get involved. All I was involved with is you had a meeting with her, I know. So what came out of the meeting?
It was in regards to the skate park.
They're going to do,
They have a proposed project.
no, how much?
It's to be determined because the designer engineer was going to do a lot of pro bono work, according to them,
Yeah.
according to Mr. Nasri.
Okay, well, see, somebody's trying to give us money, and it was hard to get a hold of you. That's all I'm speaking. You tend to respond to some text messages and some emails, and then a lot of times you do that. Oh, I put it in the minutes or the Friday report. If we give you an email with a certain question, it'd be better to send it to all of us. If it was me, take my email, answer it, send it to all these guys, so they have a chain of who asked and why, and we can just move on down. That would be the better way. Just to say it was in a Friday report.
It's still a communication that I would expect the council members to read.
Okay. I already talked about 10, 240, 21. Council motion 10, 241, 21, motion to establish an open item document to be attached to the city manager's report for tracking purposes. That's not being done.
Yeah, we covered that.
No, it's 240 and 241. They're totally two different things. One's give us the list in Friday report, and one was for during your city manager comments. You go over it with the city so the people know that just about every meeting we go over everything that's open and where they stand, so the whole citizens all know exactly where things are going, whether it's we haven't worked on it or.
What, I don't know what you're referring to.
Well, pull up, that would be 10, 240 and 241, 21, both of them. And we can go over them, but they both do with open items. Everything we do, every time as soon as we do, we put it on the open items list. Then
I'm
you track it.
unfamiliar with this open items list that you speak of.
Okay.
Councilmember Sampson, are you asking to have like a tick list?
No, it's a motion, we already did that.
Yeah, but is it?
It's a tick list of, what would be a good one? Oh, the thing we just talked about, talked about for the,
So it's a
ARPA.
tracking method
It's a
to
tracking
see
method for ARPA.
what was finished,
Yeah.
like what the
For
status
ARPA,
of the
this
project
That's
is.
a totally different,
no,
Yes.
you put it right on there, and we know that we're going to meet on it in June, so then we won't bug you about it until June. We just keep going through everything as a checklist, and we watch them get done, because a lot of things fell off the,
if you can provide me an example, that'd be helpful, because
Okay.
I'm not tracking anything you're saying in that regard on this,
oh, no.
on this item,
we-
on this item at all.
I think Sarvello had it, and I don't know if it was done when Mike, no, it had been Sarvello.
And this is not something that has been done on my watch, and I think it's pretty intrusive, actually.
Well, it's still a motion from the council, it hasn't been changed or amended, so.
And there's a lot of things that have been changed and amended from previous administrations, and I don't think it would be wise for us to start going down that rabbit trail.
Well, these are all within, since,
Not since I've been here.
I know, but you still, I mean, you take command, you take,
I'm aware
yeah.
of what taking
You're still
command
stuck
means.
with the things before. Just everything doesn't dissolve. We had a motion 09-235-21. It's a resolution stating that the city of Clawson, maybe Kelly can answer this, city of Clawson set and maintain fiscal policies based on the state of Michigan fiscal ready community best practice guide. Have we done that?
This is the first time that I'm hearing
I-
this.
I knew there'd be, we can talk about it later, but I'll send you the,
And again, this is you wanting to kind of go backwards. I've told you I'm looking forward and moving forward.
okay.
Grow forward, I think, is
Yeah.
what we're trying to attempt to
Yeah.
do here, is to
Well,
grow forward.
We did a lot of things that we hoped got done, but it never got done. Not because of you, it's because of the changes. It never, the pass-down log didn't get to you.
No, it's largely because of the revolving door you've had in leadership
Yeah.
positions here.
Well, there's-
Largely caused by members that sat at this dais, either past or present.
Yeah. Okay, CM 09-237, a motion directed administration to prepare an RFI for HR employee handbook services.
Again, if this is an evaluation of my last 7 months here, you're asking about things that did not even
No.
occur on my watch.
They occurred to watch for, should have been, I don't blame you because they didn't pass it to you. What I'm trying to is check that out. We gave you the ability to go get an HR handbook made and to get an RFI. How much would it cost us to have an HR handbook? Because none of us wanted to write it. So it just might help you. Nothing against you, it just might help you. Do we have a city employee handbook?
Not at this time, no. It is something,
What?
quite honestly, that was after the budget, that was the focus, and then it never got to because of all the challenges we had with Treasury and whatnot. So
Are you-
it's on the list of things to do.
We have a council motion 09-226-21, the resolution to direct staff to
What's the date on that, please?
21,
9/26/21.
I started in 2022.
21, 22, that's the only thing he sent me. So it's only the things that we've been tracking for the last 2 years.
No, I sent you things from when I started.
Yeah, yeah,
And he was here the year before I was
yeah.
here.
So I'm not saying that,
I'm just trying to give the
You-
conversation here
yeah.
relevance and context because it's an exchange for time.
Yeah,
So
you-
I'd like it to be relevant.
Yeah,
Because
well,
it's
it's-
getting late, we have an audience
Yeah.
here, and it should be relevant.
well, it's.
In all fairness,
It's very
if
relevant.
Councilmember Sampson feels it's relevant, I would hope that you would just indulge him.
I have.
Part of what he's
indulged
trying to do is establish, we've never done this since you've been here, and this should
You guys
be.
really haven't done this, period, from what my findings have been. This has not, the way this evaluation system has been put in place, technically, you should have had roughly 36 personnel interactions between council and your appointed personnel. However, there is a single piece of paper that are in those files that is from Councilmember Shepherd, who utilized it for the city clerk during his evaluation, and he used the evaluation tool that August and I suggested the council use. There is not a single evaluation completed to the T in your instruction within the previous manager or the previous treasurer's.
And as you just said, we are here to grow forward.
Okay,
And we
fair
are
enough.
growing forward.
Amen.
And you cannot hold anyone here responsible for things that did or did not occur prior to your coming here. We are painfully aware of the mistakes, mishaps, miscommunication, poor communication, lack of communication, all of the various things that have transpired in the past several years with the management leadership team here at the City of Clawson. People who served in this capacity, people who served in your capacity, and many others. We are all here today because our goal is to grow forward. So please just indulge him. His concerns, let us take what is relevant and utilize that. And
Precisely, that's
then
what
we
I'm
shall
asking for,
use
relevance.
the other portions to move in a forward-moving passion in another time. You've made it really clear that this council made mistakes. Administration also made mistakes. And guess what? We're supposed to show grace for everyone when we're doing what we do. And when we do make mistakes, we're here today for an evaluation, which this is how he's doing his evaluation. He is utilizing the form that he created, in all fairness. He's fully aware of what's there. It may be taking up a little bit of time that people aren't experiencing or enjoying, but it's relevant. And this is one thing we all have to learn together. If it's relevant to him, it should darn well be relative to all of us, because we can grow from it, and let's try and do that. So I'm sorry, but please just let
Thank
him
you.
continue, and let's just
I'll
move,
rush.
and you'll have plenty of time to share. You will.
All these things are things that we did, past council and this council. And even though you're new, you know how the world works, you're really responsible for them. And I'm trying to say, here, let me give you all these suggestions. These are all motions made by us that never went anywhere, and now it's your reins, you're holding reins. There's no going nowhere with you. Today, I'm not holding them against you. I'm trying to say, check into these, see if we want to, well, you really have to do them because they're all council motions. You just can't pick and choose and say, I'm not going to do it. But, so I'm trying to give you a heads up saying, nobody's went back and looked at what got passed, what should be done. These need to be done. They were council motions that nobody did. And it's because of the changes, and it's because of the council at the time. We were making changes with the staff, and it was your continuity now. It's your ship. We're hoping that you read all these and say, I can put this in, I can't put this in, and tell us why, and maybe we'll change them, I don't know, but there's a lot of things that never got done. And that's what we're hoping for. And it's not to blame you, it's the fact that this is the middle one where you can say, hey.
And I will fundamentally disagree with this approach, because it was these tactics that drove people out of this city, out of the city manager's chair. Yes, plain and
Mr.
simple.
Raker, with
It's
all
these
due
things.
respect, you were not here for any of those city manager
I've
situations.
watched
Your
these
personality
videos.
is different than others, and I know everyone has a snapshot of how everything here went down. There are some very strong people in this room today, in this city hall, that didn't leave, that perhaps should have. They withstood all of the things that have transpired. There are a lot of unfortunate situations that occurred over the past, I've only been here 5 years. For 5 years that I've sat here, I'm embarrassed at much of what's transpired, but I am not sitting here today because I was part of it or complicit in it or cheering any of it on. I am here today because I want this community to do better, and I feel it deserves better. And I'm assuming that's why you're working here as well. Many of the comments that you've stated, which you're entitled to, whatever you want, are things that are just not helpful and not showing that unified spirit that we need in order to
disagree
move on.
with this approach.
You can
And I
disagree.
can.
You said you
Absolutely.
thought it was pretty intrusive that he makes requests. You said that communication, you expect council members to read, insinuating that he doesn't read the information
It's not
that you give him.
insinuation,
You
it's
stated how many
demonstrated.
times do I have to tell you something? I will state to you what I had to state to someone else earlier today. If someone poses a question to you, it's because they need a response. It is not because they're trying to annoy you. They're not 5. They're not poking at you and going, Mom, 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 Mom. You've never experienced that, but it's the equivalent, I know, when you're not asking for information. That's not what people are doing. We have to be sometimes put a little of ourselves away so that we can understand that this isn't really about you. It's about other people. This body can only serve effectively if we are provided information. The number one frustration I personally have ever had serving this body, and I'm hearing it, is lack of communication or a feeling of not having appropriate information or having slanted information. That's not cool. You accuse this man of creating toxicity in this town. That's not a small statement.
It's not.
I mean, that's not working together. I've wrote 100 of them down, but you said something great.
Sure.
You said we need to grow forward, and we're going to go with grow forward. We're going to ignore all the rest of it, and we're not trying to create a revolving door. If we were trying to do that, this meeting would look differently. So let's just work together through this, and let's try and just get through this, and then establish some common ground, and you're not a victim of the past. You have not experienced any of the things the previous city managers has experienced. You're a strong man. You've proven that. Let's just take your strength, couple it with our strength, and let's do great things for this community. Let's grow forward.
That's what I'm trying to do, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Sampson, you're almost finished there, right?
Getting there close. Well, I will give you a copy of this. I will do the whole procedure where I'll send it to the mayor. She can put it in your file. And you can,
I don't know where that procedure comes from as far as,
if you read the whole policy, everything's in there. The mayor keeps them and then forwards to the next mayor, and you can read, it's all in there. CM 09-22621, directing administration to maintain a running list of actionable items under the old unfinished business portion of the agenda. You may want to look at that meeting and see what we really wanted. It's really just, that is on all the meetings, and everything's out in front of us. That's what we wanted, everything out in front of us, where we didn't let something fall behind the, and what happened to that? We forgot to do this. It's right out in the open. It's a great way to work. You know what's coming up, and you know you got to do it. 10-243, motion to approve municipal analytics, the proposal to include an analysis of the city clause and financial model at a cost of not to exceed 12, and then a compensation labor study at a cost not to go over 12,000, and a new user fee study. Last time I talked to John, we were waiting for information from us. And that was back in.
and that there in and of itself is inappropriate. You as a council member shouldn't be talking to a service provider. It's the administration's job. I made that very clear with Mr. Kaiser, and I think he has not had communications with you since then because he understands the city manager, mayor form of government.
Why did it take us 6 months and he's still waiting for information? And has he gotten that information he needed?
We actually met with him. It's in my Friday feedback where I gave you an update on all 3 of those items.
Do we have a fee schedule yet? Because I know
I believe.
the building department was waiting for a fee schedule.
I believe I have that updated in my Friday feedback. There's 3 components to it, and I addressed all 3 as to when they would be available. I don't have them off the top of my head, but I could look through my Friday feedbacks for you if you'd like. So I'm going to start bringing them with me.
Yeah, because it started in January of '22. And we were hoping to have a fee schedule by the big permit season, and we didn't have it for the big
And
permit
here's the
season.
thing, you've had one person in the finance department who's been wearing basically 2 to 3 hats. And she's slowly handing those hats over because she's been doing a great job.
Yes, very well. You've been handling those hats.
Okay. Question, why didn't we produce a 2022 Consumers Annual Report of Water Quality on time?
That was supposed to be in the, there was a printing issue that I explained again in the Friday feedback, and also I think this is a separate email as well that was addressed. There was a printer issue. The printer, not a printer in the city, but with the contracted printer.
The next thing on there was a Renshaw, but we are working on a Renshaw Apartments.
Again, I had mentioned that there is
there
an
was a motion for
ADA
that.
compliance checklist that has
Yeah.
to be executed.
Okay. CM 117-22 directed AEW, or directed you to tell AEW to continue bidding out all 3 projects for road repairs as a budget to encourage contractor interest and cost savings, but only one got bid out. Why?
One got bid out because it was to meet this timeline. If we didn't have participation, which we thought may be the case, then all 3 would have been combined and put out for bid for spring. That is why.
CM 129-22, that was the one that the city manager was to respond to Mayor Milan's email. Did that get done?
Am I
Completely?
really going to have to answer this question? Of course it got done. I mean, we're beating dead horses here.
Thanks.
I've sent these things to you. You're asking these questions.
Well,
If we're growing forward, we should all make an effort to grow forward.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Here's a question. Are you planning on, we're going to negotiations with the union next year. You said you're going to send your letter out announcing it sometime in December.
I never made any such statement of that. I said that I still have, that is on the horizon
Yeah.
in
Okay,
regards to
my question
when
was,
we
are
wanted to do the $15 an hour raise.
No, this has nothing to do with that. Are you going to have a closed session with council, see you can get our advice and consent on where we really want to go to, so we can all have a part of this?
I don't see why there would be a reason why we couldn't have that in
Okay.
advance.
Good. A lot of these we talked about because they fit several places. Oh, did I bring up that I'd like to see council get all staff emails?
Pardon me?
Yeah. When you have the email that was sent about explaining the chief of police, that would have helped if we got a copy of that.
I'll go back and look at
Okay.
your disconnect with the communication on that.
Yeah,
I will go back and take a look at that.
good, I will. When you provide documents to council, provide the latest and greatest. The package you sent to us for this was not the approved one
For what?
for your evaluation. In fact, we just got another copy of it. And did you give me a copy of the newest one, August?
at some point in time, council needs to go back and look at that tool because it is contradictory in nature, unattainable, and it did not go before the city attorney before you started using it. So, and by demonstration of incomplete evaluations, I think that says a lot.
I don't think they're any complete, I don't think the,
Have you done quarterly evaluations, as the instruction says, on the 4 people you appoint? There's no way. It hasn't happened on my watch.
well, that's why we're trying to grow forward.
Okay,
We're starting to,
fantastic.
we're starting today.
We're starting to get
3
somewhere.
months from now, we're going to do it again, and 3 months after
No,
that.
my advice is not every 3 months.
It says right now, 3 months from now, and
Negative.
3 months.
Negative.
That'll have to be something the council takes up. Okay. Yeah, okay, and for management and organization, 1. Execution of policy, 1. Financial management, 2. Relationship with council, 0. Community relations, 2. Communications, 0.
You gotta read them.
Leadership, 2. That, oh, professionalism, 1. Turn it back over to you.
Achievements, you gave him credit for achievements.
Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Anderson,
Madam Mayor,
follow that.
I request we take a brief recess.
Thank you. I would love to take a brief recess. What do we say, 5 or 10?
5 should do it.
5 minutes? Okay, so we'll meet back here in 5 minutes.
Make it 10.
Make it 10 minutes, because everyone's going to be late. That is true. And you can hardly walk to the other end.
to figure it all out.
And you might have to take turns, because there's more women than no women. Okay, break time. Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're back. Hope everyone feels relaxed, rested, ready to go. Councilmember Anderson, we're going to pick up with you.
Okay. Well, Mr. Raker, I'm the junior member of this council, so I'll confine most of my basically just observations and commentary at this point, if that's okay. One of the reasons I ran for council in the first place was I saw an instability in the city government. I made that my campaign theme, and I managed to get elected, because I think that perception was not just seen in City Hall, but throughout the community. I think I mentioned in my campaign literature that in 2 years, we went through 5 city clerks and 4 city managers in 2 years. And instability is damaging for any organization, whether it's governmental, private, you name it. So my desire was to restore stability. I consider one of the top priorities of that was to bring in a city manager who could restore that stability. And I'll have to be honest with you, I was concerned about the field of candidates that we might attract. I mean, any candidate we're going to attract for that position is going to do a little research and see how things are going. And I was afraid we might have trouble finding a qualified person to do the job. And so, because then again, my opinion is I'm not necessarily looking for a brilliant manager, a genius. I'm looking for somebody who can bring some stability to the city government. I think by and large, you've done a pretty good job of that. I've taken informal opinions of various people at City Hall. Most of them have been positive. I'm sure you could find some negative too. Because whenever a person's in charge, it's unlikely that all your subordinates are going to be happy with you, especially when you're the new guy. I think it was March we brought you in.
Yes, sir.
So it's been all 7 months. So, and of course, many challenges were visited upon you, starting with the police chief retiring, and also the city treasurer with, again, not a lot of notice. So you had a lot to struggle with, and the relationship's been rocky, but I think by and large, based on what I've seen, you made a lot of positive steps. Okay. Now, in some of the criticism brought forth, most of it's been the relationship with council. A lot of it seems to break down to communication issues, that you're not communicating properly or timely, things like that. I'm not going to cite any specific instances. I feel by and large the communication's been pretty good. I think it could be smoother. I know whenever there's a communication issue between the speaker and the hearer, or shall we say, the transmitter and the receiver, if there's a breakdown, it could be the transmitter, it could be the receiver, it could be both. So I guess whatever the cause, I think it's important that we get that cleaned up. And I think fixing that will fix most of the issues with council. I know Councilman Sampson brought a list of various council motions that had been voted on. Most of them were previous to this council, and almost all of them previous to your tenure here. To be honest with you, I'm not going to address them all. I think Councilman Sampson was very thorough in that. I do think there was one council motion that would be maybe very helpful going into the future, and that would be 10-241-21. I know that in many of our communications, it goes to the tune of, Mr. Raker, what's going on with this? And then your communication was, well, I communicated that in a previous email, which the communication back is, well, I don't remember getting that, or I didn't see that. That's basically a breakdown in communication. And I think one way to help fix that is in that council motion. Again, I haven't read the whole thing, but the title of it, I think Mr. Sampson made clear, is to kind of have a running list of all the things you've been directed to do, whether by council, by a motion, by just a request from a citizen, and things like that. And just like a running list, and essentially the date, what the request was, and what the status is. Status could be as little as in process, or it could be in process, projected completion date, such and such. I think the way it helps, like I said, I've read your Friday updates. They seem very thorough and complete to me, but I'll be honest with you, in our position, keeping it all straight in our heads can be very difficult. In other words, you may be a good transmitter of the information, But in our position, we're not always the best receivers. So we need some help, is what I'm saying, on our end of it. So if you could, I would just make that a running list and include that in your weekly updates. That way, in many cases, we don't even have to ask in the council meeting. Or if it says in process with no projected completion date, we could say, maybe bring it up meeting, Mr. Raker, such and such issue I'm concerned about, you said it's in process, could you give me more detail? And generally, you've got detail on all these things. I mean, I've read your stuff, I read every packet, I read every bit of it. It's all there, but I'll be honest with you, sometimes keeping it all straight from my point of view is difficult. I think hopefully that will resolve some of the communication issues. Just food for thought. Also, going forward, I think, again, I think you pretty well wrestled with the basic structure. I mean, you came in here, you had a little disorder, and then you got some more before in your opening time. So I understand, and I think going forward, as you perfect the relationship between yourself and your employees, I think things are going to get better as we go forward. One concern I think several members of the council have had is the creation of your assistant city manager position with Mr. Stefanitz there. From what I'm understanding, he kind of when you came here, he started as kind of a deputy clerk to, kind of assist you and take care of some things. And you've now kind of created more of a position to where he's literally your assistant. He's almost your executive officer, if I may use that term. Am I accurate in saying that?
That is 100% accurate.
Okay. So that represents a significant promotion and, by extension, a significant increase in pay. Some have questioned, is that the appropriate thing to do? At this point, I'm going to fall back on the meeting we had, the first one-on-one meeting you and I had. I made it very clear that neither I nor the city council in general is going to run this city. That's your job. In doing that, to do your job properly, we have to give you some rein to do that. Also, when you do that, when you empower someone to take care of business, by definition, they're probably going to do some things you don't like. That's just life. You get two people with two opinions. It is unlikely they will agree on every point. I've been married to my wife for 36 years. We don't agree on everything, but we get along pretty good. We made 36 years so far. So I accept the fact that there will be disagreements. And if we have one, I'll voice it, and your record shows that you're not afraid to voice your disagreements, and I respect that. I guess the key thing is when we express our disagreements, sometimes they can get a little robust, shall we say, and a little aggressive. And sometimes these disagreements, we have to make sure they don't turn into an expression of what can be interpreted as disrespect. I believe there's a lot of people I know in this life, I don't agree with what they're doing, I don't agree with their beliefs, but I can respect them and thus get along with them. In the end, that's what we have to do, not just in this council, but to maintain a civilization. A lot of our troubles today that we have in this country have to do with that fact, people not showing an adequate level of respect. So, again, there will be disagreements. It's okay to voice them, but I think we just need to kind of keep the right tone in doing that. Hopefully an improvement in communication via this open issues list will smooth a little of that out. Beyond that, maybe just going to the next step of showing a little more respect on both ends of it. Now, back to Nick, or should I say back to the position of assistant city manager. There are some who question whether that should be done. At this point, I'm willing to let you run with that, okay? You haven't heard me voice anything so far. It is a significant change because it's not just filling positions that exist in this building. You've kind of created a new position. I don't know if you call it morphing, evolving. You've redeveloped a position. That position came with cost, and that position also imbues this individual with authority, whether it's Nick or someone else in the future. So it's a position that's been now defined by your administration. That said, much of your success and your reputation will ride upon that decision. Your decision had several positives, I think, One of which is, to put it bluntly, we never know when you may be called to active duty. And we can't afford things to fall through the cracks. An administrative clerk may not be qualified to do that. But Nick has a lot of potential, a lot of background. He's, I guess, a homegrown boy in this city, so I'm sure he's dedicated. And whoever else fills that position will have to be of the same caliber in terms of character. The only question may be, having a young person in that position raises questions. But your job will be to train him and to raise him. And in essence, you will own his performance in addition to your own. Now, that said, if I can just elaborate on that position, we are a very, how should I say this? I've said it before, I'll try to say it again. We are about the smallest city in this area that I'm aware of that has pretty much every function of civil government. We have a police force, we have a DPW, we have, basically, the only thing we really farm out here, I think we share garbage collection with Royal Oak, we farm out the jail and dispatch, and that's pretty much it. So you've got a very multi-armed city hall you've got to run. The negative with that, and I think that's great, I really like that. The problem with that is every department is very small. So when an individual leaves, we're vulnerable to disruption immediately. Now, thankfully, when Police Chief Sarvello retired, he gave us a lot of time. You were kind of able to work with, you got Chief Smith, who I think everyone thinks has done a great job, taking us through this transition. And as a result, we've gotten through that. City Treasurer was a little different. It was a little more short notice, a little more disruptive, and we shared a lot of angst and pain together trying to get that situation straightened out. Thankfully, Ms. Rossetti stepped up, took the position. Again, we had another promote from within situation. So we got through that. That said, we don't know if this can happen again in the future.
100%.
People could leave, they could retire, God forbid, they could die, get injured, who knows? That's something that has to be planned for in the future. As a result, I think part of the plan to make sure that that disruption is minimized is to have a assistant city manager who, assuming you're in the building, it's not deployed, can step in and do those things. So I think part of the position of assistant city manager, he'll have to have that flexibility to step in. I know you stepped in when the treasurer resigned. Again, it may happen again. And I think an important part of the position of that assistant city manager is that flexibility to do that. Okay, just, that's my thoughts. But you've created a significant position. I think the significant position should carry significant responsibility. And part of that filling in is part of that, in my opinion.
I 100% agree with your opinion, and, in short order, in the very first week that I was here, I was like, you're just the assistant to the city manager? I'm like, he's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, he was basically trained by Michelle Cuckoo. And one of the things that we are looking at now is we need to document some of these nuanced procedures so that we can have some level of redundancy between departments. When we were shorthanded with Treasury, it was our highly tenured part-time staff that, kind of saved us in all intents and purposes. And Nick actually was the person that, he jumped in to do Treasury. He jumped in to learn payroll. He is wise and experienced well beyond his years. And I would say in this position, there's no one else that I'd want as a deputy city manager.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm glad he's working out for you because in essence, your performance and your reputation will rest upon him significantly. So again, that's a decision that you made. We need to empower you to do that.
Thank you.
But again, all these things will be held accountable in the end, right, for all of us. So that said, I should probably conclude by saying you were given a difficult job coming in. Obviously, you did the best you could. Some mistakes were made. I think the miscommunication is probably the key to some of the rocky relationships with the council. Hopefully, if you will, again, that open issues list, I think will very much help. Because then the council, we can look at the package and just walk through. You know, one thing I notice on council, it's almost like there's so many issues going on in the city. It's hard for any one council person to really keep track of them all. That's pretty much your job.
Yeah, I was going to say that's not the job of
So,
the council.
Just like any legislative body, like a Congress, they'll split into committees. You might be on the Defense Committee, the Ways and Means, the Treasury, because let's face it, there's really not a Congress person up there on the Hill that's qualified to do all the different tasks that are required by a legislature. We, of course, are a very miniature legislature in a very small town, but there's still a lot of issues, large and small. For example, myself, I tend to gravitate towards the capital improvement plan, the infrastructure, that's kind of more my thing. You know, Councilman Sampson may have a different focus, you know, a lot of his, the citizens at large, the business community. I don't want to speak for Councilman Sampson, but he's got things that deeply concern him in the city, and he really wants to know what's going on. I think each person here, the mayor, Councilman Shepherd, again, I don't want to speak for them, but I think it's fair to say each one has their area of interest they kind of focus on. And you're in a position where you kind of have to keep us up to date in fair detail on all these issues. So again, if you can keep that running list, I'll let you set together a format, get maybe some input from the council on that. Again, that was voted by a previous council, but I think, and I'm not going to run through the list, I think Councilman Sampson did that pretty well. But I think that's one, although it's in the past, I think it's a solid idea, and if you could use that, I think that'll help us going forward.
Are you going through the list?
No, I just, I think Councilman Shepherd did, or Sampson did that fine. I just, you mean, the rating list? No, I mentioned that because I'm the junior guy, I'm just going to make commentary.
Because you've spent the exact amount of time with him that we have, you're right, you should just do that. I'm not letting you go on that one, but I'll let you go.
Okay.
So, Mr. Raker, hey, it's my turn. Oh, yeah, thanks. Okay, so, I have so many different directions here, but I'd like to start with growing forward and mutual respect. It's where we need to be. I a little bit troubled today by some of the responses, and I understand it's just reaction to words that are said, but we employed you to be our city manager. Our city manager reports to the city council. The city council directs the city manager. This is the conversation I had with you when you first came in, because there is this wall that's been built, and I don't understand what you think the role of the city council is. So I'm going to ask you, what is the role of the city council? What is the role of the city manager with the city council? Because I think that's part of our problem. You mentioned repeatedly that it's not council's responsibility. Council, no one here on this council, like, again, I will speak for myself too. I don't want to know what you do all day. I'm going to assume you're making wise choices with the allocation of resources of your time, Nick's time, and every other person in this community that works within this building, with their time, and with the resources that we have, and that you're addressing the day-to-day business that needs to take place in order to provide the services for our citizens. I'm just going to automatically assume that's what you're going to do because that's what you were tasked to do. The city council can direct you, right? You work for us, and if the council has an initiative that's important to them, then you're tasked with carrying that on. So to say something like that's not in your purview, that is not your responsibility, I think it comes down to communication over and over again with this group. Is not that anyone wants to pull the strings for you to tell you how, when, where to do something. They just, if there's an initiative, they may want you to carry it out as a body, if we direct it as a body,
That's
not as
precisely
an
my
individual.
point.
Okay, we get that though, but we do get it. But it doesn't seem that that is the message that's being sent. I'm a little troubled that you attributed so much of this time to past councils and past city managers, and I spoke of it a little bit earlier. You weren't here. You weren't part of it. I hope you've not been treated the same way.
Actually, I kind of have. Early on, our start was exceptionally rocky.
Well, let's go back to the beginning. I met with Mr. Raker. Mr. Raker said to me, Mayor Milan, I'm going to minimize your voice. I feel it would be in the best interest if I minimize your voice. I took that, those were the exact words, I wrote them down, I will bring them to you and show them to you.
You are.
Minimize your voice, and then he stated that the city council effectively has no responsibility. Those are also your words.
These are, would you want to tell the council why you were, or everyone else that's here to understand why you didn't want to meet in Clawson? You had to meet outside of Clawson? You didn't want to be seen with the city manager? I said it makes sense to be seen
No,
with the city
because I
manager.
work in Beverly Hills, and I was taking time off from my work day, and I wanted to go halfway in
Both of our
between.
recollections. If you recall, you came into the meeting, you came in the second Monday, my 5th day on the job, and you recreated our exchange at the restaurant on Woodward.
I actually
and you said
didn't.
you were so
Mr.
upset,
Raker?
and you said, I want to talk to you, and I thought about this all weekend long, and I said, Mayor, I said, if there was anything that I gave you pause, I said, please give me a call right away. You shouldn't have to stew on this the whole weekend. And you said, to paraphrase, you said something to the effect that I was telling you not to talk, that your
You
voice would be
exactly
heard.
said-
I was,
no.
and I did not say any such thing. I actually talked to you about the cover sheet, about what we were trying to do, so that the meeting at the time, things were very contentious between you and the other, and actually the gentleman to your right. And I was trying to create a tool that would help minimize that. And I was saying, this is the administration's work. Let the administration brief it. There's nothing about you as a person not hearing your voice at all did I ever say anything of that nature. In fact, your parting words to me at that meeting, you asked me, Joe, what did you learn from your time on the Mount Clement City Council? And I said, I said, probably trying to understand where the relationship between city council and the city manager is, where that relationship starts and ends. And you said, you know what? If I can give you any words of advice, don't trust anybody. Don't even trust the people that are checking you and onboarding you right now. And I was like, well, that's encouraging. That's exactly what I said to you, and that's how our meeting ended. And
I will stand by those words,
Absolutely.
because there are people with ulterior motives or different views, and clearly you've listened to them, because the words you said today couldn't be yours because you weren't here for part of that. But I don't want to go back to any of
they're
that.
videoed,
Mr. Raker, all I
read it in
care
the
about,
news.
all I care about is that I will tell you what I tell everyone when they ask me about you. I will say, I am cautiously optimistic that I would like to think that you are going to do really well for our community. I know you have done lots of things for a lot of people in this building, and they're extremely happy, and that is great. I also have talked to people in this building who do not think that things are so great. I've talked to board and commission members who feel that they are not listened to, respected, or heard, and there seems to be different views. But I've spoken to residents who are extremely happy. You have a great face of presenting. You can present a great message. All I ask is that you are consistent in your messaging to all people, that you are responsive to all people, and that you are honest and forthright to all people. That's it. That's all I'm asking from you. That's ultimately your responsibility. You have the fortunate ability here. Someone just said that Nick will do well because of you. I will twist that and say that you will do well because of Nick Stepnitz. That Nick
agree.
Stepnitz works extremely hard. He is an extremely conscientious young man. He and I have had words about things, but I respect him. I've always respected him. He has integrity, and I'm going to assume that he's always going to have that, and I hope that as a team, you two can have that together. I also think that we, over and over again, if you talk to staff, their concerns here are resources, lack of resources. I would hope that the things that I have heard over and over again, that you guys are joined at the hip and everything you do together, that maybe everyone's trained now and we can start taking on separate tasks and accomplishing more. That would be my goal for you as a leader, to be able to give Nick some reins and let him go, and then for you to be doing something on your own that could
100%.
accomplish something, right? That's leadership. I do not want to go through this list. I have qualms on many of these things. I don't know if you're a good manager of our organization, because I don't see you on a day-to-day basis. Execution of policies, I would say that I've seen you go a little bit inconsistent, but you're learning them. Financial management, I'd say Kelly is our financial manager. She does an exceptional job. You just take what she gives you and present it to us, and that's a great thing, right? The best thing a leader can do is surround themselves with people who know their jobs. You're not tasked with being a finance person. You're not tasked with being a city clerk. You're not tasked with being a city attorney, a DPW director, a fire chief, a police chief, who did I leave out? The treasurer. Yeah, so anybody else, right? You're not tasked with those things. You have people that you can trust their expertise, and I would hope that you can do that. Relations with council. This little exchange right here is just 100% proof of relationship with council and the difficulty. I 100% heard you say something. I will back off of it, and I have tried to move forward with it repeatedly. I will smile at you and I will try and accomplish something. When we spoke, I told you I am not a person who has a lot of time to get in your day-to-day business. What I want to do for this community is create positive relationships. I want to turn these city council meetings into something to celebrate, if you recall that, as opposed to waiting for the circus to begin and watching people at home go get their popcorn and put their feet up and go, right, oh my gosh, I don't want to be part of that. We're all better than that. And I think the walls that are there, for whatever reason, need to come down. Communications, I don't think you're a great communicator. I think you're a great communicator when you want to share the message, but I think there are times when that wall prevents you from wanting to disseminate information from us. And I will say it again and again and again. This body, as well as all of our appointed and elected bodies, are only as good as the information that is given. If someone asks for something, they're asking because they need it. They're not asking because they're trying to annoy you. If you've already provided it 4 times, resend that email, because it's a lot quicker than saying, I gave this to you, blah, 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 blah. Even though it may be an exercise in futility, please do it. Leadership, I don't know what kind of a leader you are. I've not seen leadership. Professionalism, I think you're professional. I think you show it sometimes, but I think tonight there was room for improvement, and for all of us, but there was room for improvement. Achievements, I will say that I've been really pleased to see you out and about. I've run into you at several events for the community, and I think that's something that our city manager should be out and about. And I understand you don't even live close, so it's not even a matter of you walking out of your house and then going 5 minutes somewhere and hanging out for a while. If you do something, it's a commitment, and I appreciate that you're doing that. I commend you for that, for trying to be part of the community. Achievements, that is an achievement. And also the city's seeming reluctance to do the 4th of July as presented, but your ultimate ability to concede and do what was presented, I commend you on that, because that was something that was clearly outside of your comfort zone, and you allowed it to happen. And thank God nothing happened in this community, and our 4th of July committee proved that Clausen's great. Well, our residents proved Clausen's great. 4th of July committee provided something great for us. You're working with Mr. Nasri and the other Sean and Charlie for the Clausen Fest. Thank you for that. I know that I've talked to all of them. There's some items that will come up for areas for improvement moving forward. I think that's great. I know that concerns about turnover is something that's nothing that you can't predict that. Nick sitting next to you could get some super sweetheart deal, and his wife might want to go somewhere different. And as much as you trained him and enjoy him, he could say, my life's going to be better served somewhere else. And then you're starting over again. That's just something we have to be prepared for. And policies and procedures, I know you're the manager. Policies and procedures, policies and procedures, policies and procedures, and any organization is essential for success. I would like to thank you for when you want to be sociable and kind and all of those things, you are. So I thank you for that. I like your sense of humor when it comes out. I think it's fun when you get annoyed with stuff sometimes, but I don't find it fun when you're annoyed with council for asking questions, even if you may think there's an ulterior. Let's just get beyond the ulterior. There's no ulterior. Our goal is to just do better, be better, move forward. Let's just get there, because this is exhausting. And then outside of that, I'm concerned with what do you need to make a stronger relationship? What can we do to tear down the wall that's been built, that you have this perception that this city council has no authority and has no right to be questioning of anything?
Those are your words.
No, Mr. Raker, they're your actions. They're precipitated by your actions.
In the day-to-day, by the tenets of the ICMA Code of Ethics, I don't remember which tenet it is, the encroachment on the administration's responsibilities, the resistance to that is one of those tenets. And that's what I exercise, because there are times when you guys are overreaching, and I point that out. And I diplomatically, for the most part today, was not that diplomatic, because I've been tired of the way some of the things have happened, and I did this publicly to demonstrate it to the public, so
That's
they're
wonderful.
aware of it.
We're tired too, though. Like, you have to
then
understand that that it's a two-way street, and there
Amen.
has to be a respect and a communication on both sides.
Precisely.
It always goes back to the communication, though. It always goes back to what the thought
hearing
is.
and it's listening, processing, asking, utilization of time, utilization of just pleasantries. You know, I've had to explain when you said, how do you want us to request for information? I actually started off the explanation, let's start off with saying hello or good day, because some of you just act like I am your concierge and make a demand for information or request via text message or email, and I am not that person to respond in kind that way. So that's why I said that.
So I have a boss, right? I work for the president of my company, and there's certain acceptable behavior. I mean, he could do a lot of things. He could treat me like I'm insignificant or unconsequential, and I'd probably just take it. I probably wouldn't go, you didn't say hi to me today. Why didn't you say hi to me today? Like, come on. I get niceties, but I've been in this building and been walked past by many of these people also. I will say that one of the worst things about being on this council is having to ask for information from anyone, because there's always, I already gave this. What do you need this for? Or, I'll say abuse of power, too, on one thing that I really was offended by actions that you took, and I hope this doesn't transpire again. You had disagreement with me, and then on 3 items, I believe, and your response was to elicit our city attorney, who made it really clear to us early on that he only works for this community for 7.5 hours per week. If we utilize him for anything outside of that, it's going to cost us. It's going to cost us. So there are, I think, 3 opinions that were written, and 2 of them, basically said nothing. They were opinions, and then the other one may have actually cited something, but they were like slaps. Why was that necessary? That is not even necessary. That is a waste of resources and funds and time.
If you recall, in the same meeting where you came back into the office, when you came back in the office on day 5 of employment and you were upset about our exchange the previous Thursday, you said something to the effect, you need to remember, I approve the agenda. I'm the one that says what goes on the agenda. And I was like,
I don't think I said that, actually.
Yes, you
I
did,
didn't say
because
approve. No,
yes,
I
you said,
I have
approve.
the right to add items. Anyone on this board has the right to add items to the agenda.
That's when I went to the city attorney. I didn't even argue with you at
You
the time.
did argue with me.
I did
You
not.
said, I beg to differ.
So I begged to differ, but I didn't argue with you. I let it go because I was leaving for the Navy Reserves the next day, and the following Monday when I came back, that's when I contacted the city attorney.
Well, I'll let you know, and I'll share it with anyone who wants it. It said nothing. It did not support you at all. What you're saying doesn't support it. You respond to this body, right? That's your ultimate responsibility.
Precisely, you're absolutely right.
No, your
Not
ultimate
to individual
responsibility.
members on a whimsical request via email, text message, or phone call.
Any individual members are individual members for decision-making processes, right? We have to be individual members. We are not joined at the
Direct the
hip.
city
We cannot
administration as
come
a body.
together. No, you can't
do.
take a request. How many people ask you for things day in, day out that you do that doesn't have a formal request?
This body gives the administration direction as a body, not as individuals. Precisely, I'm not surprised by this conversation, because when I received the template, and I believe it was probably the previous city manager, it said that the city manager is responsive to the city council as individuals and as a body. And I was like, as a body. I cross that out. As a body. That's the only way this form of government will really work in its efficiency. I cannot be tasked by 5 individual people via various forms of communication.
So you're saying that you don't have to respect any of these council members unless we are
Never
sitting
said that at
together as
all.
a body? Because that is what you're saying.
Not at all is what
Kind
I'm
of,
saying.
yeah.
Not at
You're
all.
saying
That's a
that you
stretch.
don't have to respond to any of us
Never
unless we're
said that.
sitting together and we make a motion that you have to respond to us.
You cannot.
That is not a good leader.
I said I take direction. Well, I mean, clearly, then, you know what? I think that at some point in time, via previous things in the past, there was a directive that the city administration or the city council would undergo regular training, and maybe that is a good segue for this discussion item, is that a training
I think-
evolution
Yeah,
for the
that
council?
I've actually requested training since I've been mayor and nobody wanted to make it happen, but that's okay. As in all things that I've wanted to happen, we're gonna move forward and all of us could use some training, right? And I would love to see, are you a member of the ICMA?
Yes, ma'am.
Great, I think they do training as well. I think you should share the ICMA tenets with all of us, so that we are all aware of them, not just for what you're responsible to be held to, but also then perhaps we would be upheld to them as well. But then we'll all be on the same page, and that would be great, to see that professional conduct in writing, in action, that would be great.
Not a problem.
That would be a wonderful place to
I'll
start.
put that in the Friday report.
Okay, well, I did ask you what you thought are the role of the city manager is having to do with council, and I would like a brief answer or a long answer if you want. You're welcome to speak as
Sure.
long as
I
you
mean,
want.
the brief answer is I think that this council historically has, and I will steal a baseball metaphor from a distinguished council, charter commission member, majoring in the minors. And it's in the weeds with things, and that's not conducive to the administration moving forward. There's an element of on guard that I have to be prepared every time I come into this building and or sit at this council table, and it's been in existence for the last probably solid 2 months.
We share
And-
that together.
Well, what I've tried to do since I've been here is I've explained to people, and I sat down with every employee except one person who's on midnights I haven't gotten to yet, that I don't want that kind of culture, that I am trying to create a culture where people don't have to sit down and watch these meetings because of what is the barometric pressure in city hall after these meetings. But that's been the established standard operating procedure around here for the last, I don't know how many years. And maybe it's an old habit that's hard to break, but there's still a concern for the way that this council treats the administration.
I think there should be a concern about the way the administration responds to city council as well, right? It's a two-way street. So you said it. You said we're going to move forward. We're going to move forward.
Grow forward.
So, grow forward, excuse me. I would like to move and grow forward. How about that?
Well, I will give
We'll
credit where
compromise and we'll
credit
do
is
it
due.
both
That's
ways.
Pastor Traxel's moniker is grow forward. Thank you, Pastor.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, what comments do you have for city council?
I have no additional comments, ma'am.
Okay, well, thank you. It's been extremely productive. We can move on now to old unfinished business, which we have none. Then we'll move on to public comments for items on the agenda. You can flip a coin to see who comes first. Ladies first.
11, I want to do 10.
You want to do old unfinished business?
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to,
Thank you for hanging in.
my name's Ron McCauley, 1008 West Selfridge. I just want to say that they're doing the work on Selfridge now, and they're really doing a great job. They know what they're doing. They had all the right equipment. Even the city manager was out there today in the rain and the wind, checking up on them. And you guys ought to come by and see what they're doing.
I saw it already today.
Did you see the big hole in front of her yard? Yeah, they're doing a great job. So thanks a lot. So we can tell the DPW that I would never see it in my lifetime when I'm seeing it now.
My name is Ginny Sham, and I live at 1046 West Selfridge Boulevard. This is Karma, my leader dog. I'm in front of the hole in the project. And I thank you for doing this. We need this road fixed. To that end, at the end of this, we'd like to request that we could have a crosswalk at the point of the island. We asked the Traffic and Safety Board a few years ago if they would look at the situation and put in another stop sign, and they said no. But we have kids that can't get to school on their own because there's no way for them to get across the street other than walking a half a mile out of their way. So, since Michigan law says that if you're in a crosswalk, cars must stop, we're going to request a crosswalk. That just requires paint. I'll even buy the paint so these kids can get across the street. Yes, Sham School's going to close in 2 years. That just means the kids on the opposite side of the street is going to have the same problem. Okay, next thing is a wonderfully fantastic idea, my next item, that the city acquire Sham School in 2 years and make it part of the park. That would aid and really enhance our entire community. Look at how many times we mentioned Hunter Community House here tonight. That was a great acquisition. I think that this acquirement of Sham School and making it park would be the same thing. Okay? Anybody have a question for me?
How about we direct the city manager to help her get in touch with the traffic and safety and have them look at it again?
I can't understand one word you're saying.
Pardon?
I'll bring it up with the AEW as far as the
Yeah, well,
final product of this project.
Okay.
He mentioned bringing it up to the Traffic and Safety Board, and then the city manager just said what he said.
Yeah, I
they're
don't know
asking- He's just asking that it proceed so that something happen.
Yeah, I don't know when they'll ever meet again, so I just thought I'd ask you guys. All right, thank you.
Thanks for being positive. We appreciate it.
Good evening, Stephen Traxel, 381 Lincoln, Clawson, Michigan. Don't usually stay around to these meetings very often. I got some kids at home and a wife, and glad I did today. Heard some things, and in the spirit of growing forward, that term actually came out of a conversation me and Mr. Raker had concerning our city. And as you know, I'm a pastor. I'm also a volunteer chaplain of the police department. I love our city. I love that my kids get to grow up here. It's very unique, as we talked about, a small city with all the amenities that we have. And I love what we see. I love where we're at today. So glad for all of you that are here that you give your time. You're not getting rich doing what you're doing, that's for sure. But in the spirit of positivity, I spend a lot of my time pouring out myself into people. It's just the role of a pastor. It's when I get to talk to some of the police officers, get to talk to them and pour into them. And every once in a while, someone like me that's their life is to pour into people. It's a bright moment when you can be inspired by somebody else, when someone else pours into you without them even knowing it. For someone like me, if I'm a leader of my church and working in my city, to be inspired tells me I can go one more day. I'll do some more. I'll work harder. And you guys don't get enough of the accolades. There's two members in particular I want to just say, and this is just for the record, for what it's worth, two members that have inspired me lately, and one of those is Joe Raker, our city manager. The zeal that he shows me, and I may represent just myself, but I also believe I represent many of the citizens in our city. The zeal he shows for me, for the passion and the vision he has for our city, inspires me, and it's from the conversation that he talked about with me about where he'd like to see our city going, and I believe his heart is in the right place, and I could feel that. That's what inspired me to say we're going to grow forward, because of what he was saying to me inspired me, and I believe that the city is in that direction and in that vein of that spirit. And I'm thankful to you, Joe. You didn't know it, that conversation we had but it inspired me as a leader and a husband and a man that lives here in the city. I appreciate your spirit for this city. The other person, no one's asked me to come up here. This is just something I felt, but another person that inspired me just a few weeks ago, that's our city attorney, Rennis. Rennis asked me out to lunch the other day. And I assume if it's someone from a council, they just, there's a favor or something, because that's what I'm used to. And so during our lunch, we were talking about family, and I said, I want to get down to brass tacks. I said, Rennis, I said, what can I help you with? He says, you don't have to help me with anything. I just want to get to know you. And to me, that touched my heart. Because we're so used to people just saying, need something, need this. But for a man to just ask, I always ask everyone out to lunch. It doesn't happen a lot where people just ask me out to lunch, but for him to say, there's no reason, I don't want a favor, I just want to get to know you, to me, that shows the spirit of what Clawson should be about. It should be about, I want to get to know my brother, and I want to get to know my sister, and I want to carry on that spirit of positive. I want to get to know people. I think oftentimes in the business of our life, we just get so busy. We see people, but we don't really see faces. We see bodies. And so I just want to say this on record, that I appreciate both of you men that showed that spirit and poured that into me, and all of you have done a great job. Love all of you, but I just want to highlight in this meeting tonight, those men have inspired me, and I appreciate that. I appreciate all the work that you've done, all of you as council members, and our mayor. Of course, Nick, love you as well, but I just want to bring that today on my heart. Thank you both men for inspiring me, and I'm going to be a better man because of it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to the next item, which would be city attorney's report.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council. Thank you. This has been a long meeting, so of course I have a 45-minute dissertation on opaque areas of the law now. Nothing. Yeah. Sorry.
Not funny.
Nothing for this evening unless council has any questions. Thank you, Pastor Traskell.
I do, actually. As our last meeting, or the meeting before, we tasked you to go to the planning and the zoning commissions with the information regarding the short-term rentals. And I went to the last planning commission, and I was there when you got up at the end, and I know it was a really long meeting. It was close to 10 o'clock. We have them meet today. But you got up and you said, I'm going to send you an email. It'll come out at midnight, and it's regarding short-term rentals. If you have any questions, contact me. Why was that the message? Why were you not prepared to present information to them so they could have a conversation with you? That was the whole intent of tasking you to go forward to these boards and commissions. I don't know if what you did with ZBA or if you've done anything with ZBA, if they've met since then, but that seemed like yeah, I did it, but you didn't do anything. Like, you didn't share anything with them. And I spoke with several planning commission members afterwards. They're like, what was that all about? And why didn't you have the information for us? I'm sure you have a reason, but I'd like to know what the reason is.
Yeah, I'd like to, what I wanted to do, base my understanding of what council wishes to do, as well as an understanding of the law in the area, is provide the information to the boards first, and then solicit their information, questions, whatever they may have, and present them to this body thereafter when we bring the issue forward. The ZBA has not met yet. I did not want to provide the information before without talking to them, because I didn't want confusion about the role of the board in the legislation, the proposed ordinance. The role as it sits is just, and the information that we're providing is just that, it's information. They have no role. Council's wish for them to know about this particular proposed ordinance or set of ordinances is limited to the fact that they're members of our community that should be involved. Hopefully they're involved in the process of going forward and soliciting opinions, even though they don't necessarily have to, because they have no role. So that's the reason why I provided the information as I did. I wanted to present to them first. That was the first meeting after the meeting of council when I was tasked with providing the information. And I submitted the information after the meeting so that there was no confusion.
But there was also no dialogue. The whole idea was for dialogue. It made no sense
dialogue,
in order to do that. It was because you're going to have people who aren't going to contact you because it because they're not going to, right? They're going to read it and they're going to whatever, we're never going to talk about this again. And the idea was, I think we discussed it here, that although they're not party to the decision-making process, if we were to adopt those ordinances, it potentially could affect them down the road, right? And they also have experience with other forms that are very similar to that. And it just seemed like they're people who put in a lot of time. They have a lot of experience. They deal with issues having to do with that on a regular basis, on a broad basis. It was extremely confusing, and I felt like it was a huge waste of your time, and it just confused them to say, I'm going to send you an email. Well, why didn't you send the email first? So in the future, could you please send the information and then have the conversation? Because you could have written in the letter, in the email to them, you could have said, I'm sending this to you. It has literally nothing to do with you at this point. However, we're seeking opinions or viewpoints, and we would really look forward to having a conversation with you about this. That would have been very easy. It also could have been added to the agenda as opposed to you just bringing it up later on, so it could have been an actual topic of conversation. I don't like us doing things to say we're doing them and then really not be doing anything. It's a waste of your time. I wouldn't have taken you away from your family for a night if you were going to just do nothing. I would have preferred you stay home for the benefit of you and your family.
Thank you, ma'am. The dialogue that will occur will never occur between myself as the attorney for the city and the board and the planning commission. It's a dialogue that will occur between members of the planning commission to the extent that they're residents of the city and may have an opinion on the matter in this body.
Yeah, we weren't expecting you. Okay, never mind. Thank you for that. That was great.
So Rennis, you left it with them that basically said, I'm going to send out an email informing you of your thoughts. Okay.
Yeah. Please let me know of your thoughts. If you have any, please come to the city council. I will let you know when the matter is going to be back before the council on the agenda. That's with the planning commission. ZBA hasn't met yet. I'm happy to address it in the way that you deem appropriate, Madam Mayor. But again, there's some good legal thought as to the path that I've opted for. Not that it is not difficult to send an email, far from it. The more difficult thing is to be present there for the opinions. Obviously, the evening, as you may have, I don't know at what point in the evening you came in during the Planning Commission hearing, but there was an evening that had a lot of information along with it. So there was a lot of, topical conversation with respect to other areas. And so it made it, and Planning Commission meetings are typically like that, which is why I think it makes more sense to come in person, to go there in person, provide the information, to let them know what's happening. You may have been confused. I didn't sense this confusion from anybody else.
I wasn't confused, just for the record. I mean, confused is like, don't know what's going on. I knew what was going on. I painfully knew what was going on. I wasn't confused.
You may have opted for
but
a different path.
I spoke with several people who said, why would you do it this way? It made no sense.
I understand, ma'am. In my mind, it made perfect sense.
We spoke with you.
There's a very good legal reason as to why it should be done that way. Simply because we would transmit the information a different way doesn't mean that it makes that the right way. At any rate, I'm happy for the balance of the board, which we have one more, right, the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm happy to provide the information by way of an email if council wishes for so. But again.
So Rennis, I guess my question is, you'd mentioned that when we're going to try to craft this ordinance, you would be looking to the Planning Commission and the Zoning Board.
No, sir. No, sir. That was council's wish.
Mm-hmm. Which you said was a good idea. You said you did make an affirmative statement.
It's a good idea in the sense that more people be involved in offering their opinions, their thoughts as members and residents of the community. The Planning Commission and the Zoning Board of Appeal or any other board in this city has nothing to do with the ordinance this body is trying to pass. They have no authority in the matter.
We understand that, and I think we all understand why we tasked you to go forward with it.
Okay, so let me get this straight. At this point, you're not looking for any formal activity with them.
Correct.
You're soliciting informal communication.
Correct.
So if none of them would respond to your email, we just move on?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fair enough. So with that, how long are we going to take to solicit these opinions?
Yeah.
Before we move on, because I agree with you, we need to move along with this with speed.
But yes, absolutely, and I agree. My hope had been that we would have the zoning board of appeals meeting so that I may present to them provide the same information, inform them of council's wishes. That meeting was just recently canceled. They're talking about having a meeting, a special meeting for November 3rd. My recommendation would be, given council's wish for the community, for these members of our community, this board to be involved as well, to at the very least, allow for that period of time. If we notice that the November 3rd meeting is not going to occur, then I would say time to move forward, and that's why I agree with the mayor's recommendation of going forward. In that case, I think that would absolutely make sense, because it's a board that doesn't meet too often because of the nature of activity that they have. So providing that information by way of email, I think that would address the issue.
Okay, and so with that, how long do you think you'll wait before we can?
Oh, right after. I mean, immediately, whenever, I believe it would be then the second meeting of November.
Okay.
So do we have to be specific in requests to you in the future? Do we have to ask you, if we task you with something, and we did that as a body, because that's what we do, if we task you with something, do we have to ask you in advance what your plan of attack is, so that we ensure that you're doing what we asked you to do, or will this type of a thing happen again?
Ma'am, not at all. And just so that your honor is aware, that's not necessarily a task that you give me in my capacity as city attorney. I do that as a matter of courtesy to this body.
We could do it ourselves, I guess. If you don't want to do it, say pass,
No,
because
not
we
at
can
all.
do it ourselves.
It was my pleasure and my privilege to do so, and I'll always do so. You're disagreeing with the method of my delivering the information. I could understand that. But at the end of the day, you can't see, I don't think we should interpret my action as somehow being inappropriate or being unmindful of council's wishes or anything like that. It's just simply I opted for my logic in applying council's wish and delivering it to the planning commission, as opposed to yours. Do I see anything wrong with yours? No, not necessarily. On the contrary, as I'm indicating, when it comes to the ZBA, actually, it makes perfect sense, because that body meets infrequently. Planning commission meets frequently, and that's why going there in person makes a lot of sense.
Thank you. City manager report?
As you're aware, the construction of Selfridge and Phillips is underway. We've had a few complaints regarding the removal of trees, but overall, the process thus far is going smoothly. Communication with those directly affected is ongoing, to include directions for trash and leaf pickup, which have already been provided. We had already covered my suggestions about the school board interaction, and I have that for action. Pending your questions, that's my report.
I received a request from the resident asking for increased police presence along Chocolate, Marias, Manitou, those streets along Selfridge and Phillips, for the cross-traffic that is already in there speeding to get off of Selfridge to get into the other side. I was home for like an hour yesterday morning, and I couldn't figure out why. We never have much traffic on my street, and it was a constant parade, people just going down to turn around to come out. So people don't know where to go. Some people are not knowing where to go, but there are a lot of kids out in the morning especially, so if we could request police presence just to get people to slow down a little bit on those streets that are not so used to. The people who live on Selfridge and Phillips are used to people flying because that's what they do there, but the side streets are not as versed on that. So for safety reasons, if you could take care of that, it would be great. Another request from a resident has to do with rats, and I don't know the name of all the streets because I don't have the letter with me, but Huntley, Essex, I don't know, Gordon, whatever, that far section of Clawson, the other side of Rochester Road. Apparently they're having huge issues with rat control, and they're wondering if it's possible for administration to send letters to the people who live in that community, informing them on things to not do to bring forth more rats. They have people who put garbage out too soon, and then gardens and stalks with corn on it and whatever, 100 different things. But apparently it's getting really bad over there. A rat came through a toilet on one of those streets. That's disgusting. So, and apparently that's happened in the past too. So if that could be done, that would be wonderful. That's all I have for you. Do you have anything for?
I'm good.
Glenn, I see you in there. Do you have anything for city manager?
Yeah, I wanted to know if there was any new developments on Royal Oak's proposed road diet for Rochester Road.
Nothing further, sir.
Okay.
I do
That's
have
all.
a question. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, are you done, Glenn?
Yeah, I'm done. Thanks.
I just have a question. The phase one there in Selfridge, there's no driving or parking on it. So are the residents allowed to park in the street away from the phase?
Yes, and they've received communications for that as well, and the police will not be enforcing no parking overnight. That restriction is lifted for that area.
Okay. I assume the residents, are they given permits or the police just have a
No,
blanket?
that area where people will park, there'll be a natural gravitation to those adjacent areas, and that will not be enforced.
Okay.
Okay, city council comments. Glenn, any city council, Councilmember Shepherd, any city council comments for us?
No, I'm hoping that at some point we'll have an update from our sustainability committee, whether that comes through planning commission or comes through city council. Nick, do you have any thoughts on how that should be communicated with the developments from sustainability?
Starting in planning commission would probably make sense because that's kind of where it stemmed from originally. But I've been in communication with Giffords Webster about the framework, et cetera. So we'll get some progress on that shortly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson?
No, I have no comments.
Councilmember Sampson?
I talked enough tonight.
Okay, tomorrow morning at 8 a.m., there's a DDA meeting. You should all go, it's fun. They're gonna talk about garbage cans and artwork, that'll be great. There is a trick or treat trail on Sunday at the park, I don't know what time, you have to figure that out. There's a trick or treat with the DDA on Saturday, the 29th, from 12 to 2, that'll be in the downtown DDA area. It's also a pumpkin crawl on the 29th, that's for older people, to don your costumes and go do games and stuff at the local eateries and drinkeries. And you can contact the DDA for details on that. Did I have something else? Let's just say that's enough. So with that, I would like to thank everyone for bearing with us this evening, for your positive comments, for your corrective comments, and for maintaining a pretty good thing. But, oh wait, this is it. I have this sitting here today. It's really pretty. It has a beautiful eagle on it. It's the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution Constitution Week Committee Certificate Award presented to me, but of course it's presented to this entire council and our community in recognition of outstanding work in upholding and promoting the ideals of the Constitution of the United States. Something we all should be extremely proud of, to live in this United States with our Constitution. Let's hold it dear and hold it strong. And now let's go home.
Motion adjourned.
Second?
Agreed?
Sampson?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, you can hang up now.
Good night, everybody.